Ladies and gentlemen, lend me your ears and your eyes. Diva Divine Light, live from Brooklyn, New York.
Know your lane for what you saying, yo. Said it with my 9 million with the dilly, yo. When I be on the mic, yes, I do my duty, yo. While up in the club, I be while in the studio. You don't wanna vibe, nigga, really and truly, yo. My main thug nigga named Julio, he moody, yo. I'm a nigga that'll slap you with the toolie, yo. Bitch, nigga scared to death, act fruity, yo. Fuck that, look at shorty, she a little cutie, yo. The way you shake it, make me wanna get all in the booty, yo. With no delaying for what you saying, yo.
Diva Divine Light.
Really hard hearted to me. That's what you got for me. Look more than hands with my eyes to see. Still $1 in the place to be. If you really hard hearted to me. That's what you got for me. Look more than hands with my eyes to see. Still $1 in the place to be. If you.
You're watching Diva, the Divine Light. A fun-loving, caring, passionate person who talks about sex, celebrity, and real-life issues, and even abuse. So hit that like button and make sure you share the show.
Really high-hearted to me. Let me see what you got for me. Put more than tears with my eyes to see. Swim up dollar than a place to be. If you really high-hearted to me. Let me see what you got for me. Put more than tears with my eyes to see. Swim up dollar than a place to be. If you really high-hearted to me. Let me see what you got for me. Put more than tears with my eyes to see. Swim up dollar than a place to be. If you really high-hearted to me. Let me see what you got for me. Put more than tears with my eyes to see. Swim up dollar than a place to be. If you.
Here comes the pitch, and it comes in wide. On the go ball.
Yo, 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 yo. Hey, ladies. Hello, hello, hello. I apologize for being a little behind here. Something came up. So, sorry about that. And the husband left. He's off to work. He's gone. So it's just us guys, okay? The children are in the room. So we are good to go. Apologize about everything. I know you guys were waiting. Somebody's like, call her. Hi, everybody who's in the building. I don't know who's here, but I know who was originally. Let's see. It was Noonie. Hi, my Noonie. T-Bam. What's up, baby? Take our Kelly. Give us back Tupac. Yes. Always. We love you, Tupac. Okay, let's see. Karen J. What's up, baby? I am Queen Newton. What's up, Queen? Hey, Aisha. Hi, Mama. Kendra. Oh, man. You missed it already. Okay, well, I love that you stopped by. There's feedback with my mic. Okay, give me a second. Let me check what's going on. Okay, audio. Let's get it together. So I'm gonna have to change this audio. I don't know what is going on with my mouse, but I think I have to change my mouse. I have to change it to my camera. Something's going on with my mouse. Hello? Do you guys hear me now? I'm so sorry. I had to switch microphones again. I'm going to have to get another microphone and another mouse. This is ridiculous. I'm trying to find good products. I don't know what else to do, guys. You guys hear me? Hey, Sonia Davis. Hey, T Bam. Hey, Tunbella. Truth Strong. What's up, mama? Girl, listen, I couldn't take no more of his live either. Listen, I wanted to jump on the panel, but I was like, the way I was feeling and listening to him and all the shit that was going on, I wanted to jump on when Robert Keller was there, and but I couldn't because I was with my mom. And at one point, I started screaming at the phone, and my mother was like, "Stop screaming! What the fuck?" So, guys, okay, I sound much better. All right, so, oh man, I'm gonna have to. Because I'm going to have to figure out another way to do this with you guys. Because now my little microphone, I'm having difficulties with it. I don't know what's going on. Um, so now I can't put it to my Bluetooth speaker, right? But I'm wondering if I can play the Audible in the background and pray that YouTube doesn't pick it up like that. We got to figure this out, guys. Yeah. Hello, Almond Brown. Welcome, welcome, baby. Nikki Six. Mamita, I'm glad you're here, baby. I miss you, mama. I miss all you guys. It's been a couple of days. Y'all haven't seen me. And well, I had a lot of fun, by the way, at the Monique show, the April Fool's show. Yes, I did. I had a good time with my sister and one of her peoples. And it was really awesome. And Monique did speak about the whole thing with Will Smith and stuff. She's like, if that would have been me, it wouldn't have been like that. It wouldn't have went down like that. She would have clapped back at Will. It would have been a fight. It would have been on. That's what she said. If you guys get a chance, go check it out. So, but today we are here to talk about Larry Nassar. This is part 2 to my little story about Nassar. And we left it off. We were listening to the book Twisted. And we left it off at, I believe, at chapter 10. We are now going to continue chapter 11 to the end, which is, so we're going to be here for about 2 hours, guys. So if y'all can hang out with me, that's awesome. If you guys fall asleep, it's okay. Y'all know how it is. Sometimes my lives can do that to people. They can put people to sleep, because it gets deep in here. Also reminding everyone that this live is triggering. Okay. So I'm giving out a warning. All right. For those who can't handle the content, I advise you to turn it off when you feel that it's too much. Okay. For those who want to stick around and learn more, I appreciate you guys for being here. I'm a little right now. I had to get right so I can do this with you guys myself because this is kind of deep. So we left it off. We left it off on chapter 10. We're gonna go to chapter 11. So I'm gonna have to play this in the background. I don't know how I'm gonna do it. I gotta think of something. I gotta think, guys. I gotta think of a way that I'm not going to get struck. Let me see. Excuse me, remember, I'm still a little sick too, guys. I'm feeling much better, thank God. But I'm still a little sick, okay? Damn, I gotta think about how I'm not gonna do this with y'all. All right, you know what? I guess I can do it this way and keep my microphone, my headset. All right, let me know how this sounds, guys, if you guys can hear it and it sounds clear. All right, give me a heads up. Give me a thumbs up. Let me know. Let's see how this goes. Okay.
Chapter 11. Trapped in the house.
I shouldn't be here, but I'm already here, so what do I do?
Let's leave the Michigan State campus for a moment and head elsewhere to a key location. The Nassar home. Larry, Stephanie, and their 3 children live just outside Lansing in Holt. Holt is a community of 24,000 people. It's a quilt of ranch-style homes, mowed lawns, kids playing on the street, and lots of green Michigan State University bumper stickers and flags flapping in the air. The Nassar home fit right in. It was painted white with dark green trim, with a lawn cut so closely it looked like AstroTurf, and a basketball hoop out front. Sometimes, chalk drawings of rainbows and flowers lined the driveway and sidewalk. The home sat on a windy street, an earshot away from a public park and a small baseball diamond frequented by little leaguers, dog walkers, and young families pushing strollers. And it was here where often Larry would see patients. One of them was Melody Vanderveen, a contemporary and jazz dancer who had seen Larry for 6 years, mostly at his office at Michigan State. She was among the patients he set up appointments with via Facebook and texting, including instructions like, use the back door at Michigan State to come and go. By 2014, the year Amanda Tomashow made her complaint, Melody was studying management, entrepreneurship, and dance in college, and still getting injured. Her hips, her knee, her back. Just a blink after Amanda's complaint, none of the protocols that were supposed to have been in place as a result of Amanda's report had been instituted. Larry did not have another resident in the room. He did not explain procedures. He did not use gloves. And around that time, he asked Melody to come to his home in Holt for an appointment.
In my head, I was like, well, I trust this guy. I've seen him for 6 years. Like, by the time I was 19 or 18 was when I went to his home. I had so many years of knowing him under my belt that I was like, okay, you might feel freaked out because it's kind of weird to be at his house, but like everyone goes to his house and it's not weird. It's okay. Or even I should be freaked out because I'm walking in to a darkly lit MSU Sports Med office because I'm seeing him after hours and I'm going through a back door, but that's okay because other people do it too. So like if it was weird, other people wouldn't be doing it.
Larry lived very close to Melody, so the trip was easy.
He lived like 2 miles from me. Opened the door. His kids were playing on the ground with like blocks and Legos. His wife looked deranged. I could tell that she wasn't probably very comfortable with having patients there. Not because she knew what he was going to do, but more like, okay, here comes another patient that you really shouldn't be having at our home. Clearly, he did not listen to his wife, so she felt uncomfortable and horrible. It was very clear that she felt this way, and if I see another woman feeling this way, I'm like, I shouldn't be here. But I was, and he was like, let's go down to the basement. So we walked, just him and I, into the basement alone. There's something about like going into a guy's basement alone, I don't care who it is, that's unnerving. And obviously when I decided to go to his house, I didn't know I was going to be thrown into the basement. I think he offered to have me treated on a bed. Thank God I did not do that. Then he said something like, I do have a medical table, so I'm just going to set it up. Or I think he made the option or something. And I said, obviously, medical table. So he set this up in the middle of his basement. I clearly remember there was, a couch in front of me. Then there were sliding doors about 20 feet away. Then the medical bed was like in the middle. And then there were toys and like playhouses and stuff around. So it was pretty like creepy looking at it now. All these childhood toys and then this evil man doing his thing to a child. But now it's even more scary to think he had a video camera probably on me. And I remember just being like, all right, I'll just put up with this quote unquote treatment and we'll get out of there. And that's what happened. And I just remember, I think that time I was very silent. Like I didn't talk with him. It was a very different type of appointment. I didn't like, obviously, what he was doing in treatments, but this one I was like, get me out. And that was one of the last appointments I had with him. I had a couple more after, but it was toward the end. Honestly, of all the appointments, that one is the biggest blur to me because I think that was the most like traumatic appointment. If you'd call it an appointment, it felt too personal. Obviously, if someone's touching you inappropriately, that's already too personal, but this one felt too personal, like to a whole new level. And it felt like if I needed to escape for any reason, there was definitely no option for me to do so because everyone was trapped in that house, including his wife.
Wow. That's crazy. He's a straight predator. Had everybody trusting him.
Chapter 12. Hope Lives.
After Chelsea's death, Donna Markham felt herself spiraling as well.
After Chelsea took her life, I had to go to therapy. I didn't want to live. I was in such a bad place. And so I couldn't get through a day. I ended up quitting my job. Some days didn't want to get out of bed. Depression is a horrible, horrible thing. It's all consuming. So when I had called Chelsea's therapist to let her know that she had taken her life, she said, do you need help? And I said, I think so. And so she said, come in and see me. And although we never broke the patient-therapist confidentiality of Chelsea, she knew what I was talking about. I didn't because, I didn't know what Chelsea and her had talked about, but she understood where I was coming from. But there were days when I woke up crying, went to sleep crying. Going to therapy, I started maybe 3 days a week. I went for 4 years. And finally, I told her one day, I said, I have good news today. And she said, what's that? And I said, I don't have to come back again. I said, I'm good. And she said, I knew you would get there. I just didn't know when. And she said, that's good news to hear. And so I'm a basket weaver. Some of my baskets are out. They're all over my house, actually. But so
wow. You made those? They're great.
Yeah.
I thought that was a metaphor.
Well, they're everywhere.
Wow.
But anyways, so I wove her this basket, and the name of the basket was Hope Lives. And I said, I made you this basket because coming here, you hope that you'll survive. And I said, maybe you could use the basket to have your patients write a note to themselves and what their goal is or accomplishment or whatever, and fold it up and put it in there. And then when they get to that point, you can say, here's the note that you wrote at the beginning, look where you've come, however you want to use it, so I made her this basket. And so I gave it to her on my last day, and I have never seen her again. But I've always have the invitation to come back if I need her,
During our conversation with Donna, she wanted to make sure that we understood that Chelsea was a whole person, not just a gymnast whose life ended tragically. At one point, after we'd been speaking for nearly 2 hours, she brought out photographs and objects to show us a different picture of who Chelsea was.
Even at one of her proms, she wore this in her hair. This was her little tiara.
Oh, it's so cute. Oh my gosh.
So, yeah, this is Chelsea's tiara. So unless you had a tiara, you truly weren't a princess,
Absolutely.
And she wore that, I don't know how long she's had that. I don't know where she found it. But she wore it, she wore it all the time. It was She was a princess. That was her. Even on the phone, she put in my phone, her cell phone, it says princess. It didn't say Chelsea. It said princess.
Over time and through therapy, Donna says she's had to do the same thing for herself, remind herself of her own full humanity.
I have a new slogan. I'm living life to the fullest. I'm a wife. I'm a grandmother. I'm a friend. I'm a lover. I'm all these different people.
You're a basket weaver?
I am a basket weaver. Oh, I have hundreds of them.
And it also helps her, she says, to get away.
Right after Chelsea died, my girlfriends decided that I needed to get away. So I said, okay, sounds good to me. I need to get out of this environment. And I had quit work. So they said, we're going to Cabo. Fine, never been there. Got there, we're driving down the coast and we got to open water and I rolled down the window and it's like, I could smell that salt air and hear the roar of the waves. And I said, I am home. This place is calling me. While I was there, I bought a timeshare. I called my husband. I said, just buy a timeshare. Oh, okay. So, but one day I was having a really, really bad day and I left our condo and they have these little cement walls, brick walls and stuff. And I was sitting out there and I was crying and I didn't want to be with anybody. And all of a sudden I felt this arm around my back. And he's like, Senorita, why are you crying? So I said, I lost my daughter. And he starts crying. He's very sensitive. He pulls out pictures out of his wallet. He's got a son that's going to be 2 and a daughter that's like a year. And I said, go home and hug them to death because tomorrow, you never know what tomorrow will bring. Well, we've been friends for almost 10 years now.
Wow.
And that little girl that was a year old, we are now her godparents for her first communion.
Wow.
They just welcome us into their family. And so I just save my pop bottles and my miles from the airlines and go as often as I can, so that's what brings me peace and happiness. And my grandkids and my family, my husband, my daughter, my grandkids, I love them to death,
Wow. Rest in peace, Chelsea. That's so sad. Poor girl.
Chapter 13, Trouble at the Ranch.
My name is Rhonda Fain. I was the Senior Vice President of USA Gymnastics for only 37 days when I received a phone call from a coach about the concerns of a gymnast that she was coaching.
Back at the Correa Ranch in Texas, a mix of stars from the London Olympic team and prospects for the Rio Games were in training. Larry continued to work with them as a team doctor, but during one visit to the ranch in 2015, Sarah Jancy, the club coach for Maggie Nichols, a national team member, overheard something that deeply worried her.
The gymnast had experienced what the coach described as uncomfortable encounters of therapy with Dr. Larry Nassar, a member of the USA Gymnastics national team medical staff.
Maggie was telling her teammate, Aly Raisman, that Larry had been touching her inappropriately for a purported knee treatment. She also said Larry had sent her a private social media message saying that she looked beautiful in her prom dress, which had made her uncomfortable. Horrified by what she overheard, Sarah reached out to someone higher up at USA Gymnastics. She called on Rhonda Fain, the former Olympic gymnast and University of Florida coach, who had joined the organization in May of that year as the senior vice president overseeing the women's program. In June 2018, she spoke before a United States Senate subcommittee about her experiences.
After my further inquiry, this coach also disclosed that she had heard that 2 other gymnasts that she did not coach personally may have been uncomfortable with Nassar. I immediately phoned and reported the concerns to the president of USA Gymnastics, Steve Penny, my direct boss, who assured me that he would contact the coach, the parents of the gymnasts, and the proper authorities.
In an interview over email, Rhonda told us that she had never met Larry in person and that other than emails about official USA Gymnastics business, he once contacted her via phone, congratulating her on the vice president position. What many people had long characterized as murmurs around Larry at the elite level were now, officially, front and center for the head of USA Gymnastics. A few days later, Rhonda testified, Larry emailed her about travel arrangements for the coming World Championship selection camp. She forwarded the email to her boss, Steve Penny, asking how she should respond. Steve told her to tell Larry she'd get back to him later. Rhonda later said that she assumed this was because Larry had been reported to authorities.
Within 1 month from receiving that initial call, I received 2 additional reports of gymnasts expressing concern about Nassar's therapy. I again followed the same protocol and immediately notified Penny each time, who again assured me that he was contacting the parents of the gymnasts involved and the proper authorities. Each time I immediately reported these incidents, I was told by Penny to not say anything to anyone for fear of possibly impeding any investigation of Nassar.
According to emails submitted to the Congressional Record, Steve wrote to Rhonda and said that an interviewer was talking to 3 athletes about Larry. He called them athletes A, B, and C, but Rhonda said in her testimony that she knew who they were because of the cities that Steve had mentioned. He asked Rhonda to set up the interviews with athletes B and C and not involve parents or coaches because those athletes were adults. "We will not be disclosing the nature of the conversation," Steve wrote to Rhonda, "other than it is private and confidential. You will need to use your best judgment on how to build that trust. We will also not be disclosing why or who brought any of this to our attention." What Steve told her upset and confused Rhonda. She said that she told him that she did not want to reach out to the athletes alone, and she did not want to leave parents and coaches out of the loop, as she considered this a serious matter. "Myself being a parent, there is no way I would want someone to not notify me if something may have happened to my child," she said she told Steve Penny. He replied that parents could be involved after all. On or about July 18th, 2015, Aly Raisman contacted Rhonda and said that she had spoken to an investigator and was rattled by the experience.
Fran Zeppler came to my house and interviewed me, and I was totally caught off guard, and I was used to just kind of sticking up for him. Over the years, my teammates and I would talk amongst ourselves saying, he's really weird and he definitely makes us uncomfortable, but then we would kind of make excuses and we'd say, well, he does it to all of us, so it must be okay. He's been doing it for so long, so if it was wrong, he would have already been caught. And he's a doctor, and he's the Olympic doctor, so he has to be the best.
That footage is from The View on ABC. The person Aly spoke with wasn't an investigator in the conventional sense. Here's Jessica of Gymcastic.
Penny, instead of calling the police or the FBI or Child Protective Services, Penny, and this counts for Sarah and Rhonda too, they didn't do this either as far as we know, Penny called a human resources. I'm not going to call her investigator. USA Gymnastics called her investigator, but that's not actually true. She is not a licensed private investigator, so I won't use that word. She's a human resources consultant.
Her name was Fran Zeppler, and she was a consultant whose focus was on human resources training for companies. That included the NFL, which had hired Fran to host seminars and workshops on bullying and rape culture. She was not a district attorney or a lawyer. She was not part of law enforcement. Rhonda, who was leading the women's program, told us that she only learned about Fran Zeppler from Aly's autobiography, Fierce, in 2017.
I just, when you said investigator or proper authorities or the appropriate authorities, I assumed it was some sort of law enforcement.
Quote, "I was never told who it was, what their credentials were, or why decisions were made," Rhonda said.
She lost that job in 2018, presumably over the fallout from the Nassar scandal. "To this day, I have never received a reason or explanation to my forced resignation," Rhonda told us. "I only found out that I was no longer a part of USAG the next day when I received a message from the communications department letting me know of their impending release."
After being summarily fired from my dream job without warning or explanation, I am left surprised, hurt, confused, and I feel I am being falsely blamed for the alleged deficiencies of USA Gymnastics. But more importantly, I feel a deep sense of loss, sympathy, sadness, and compassion for the victims of Nassar. On whom my most sincere loyalties have always been focused, and whose concerns should have been reported to law enforcement authorities at the earliest possible moment, as I assumed was being done at the time, and as I would have done had I known then what I know now.
That footage.
You see how all these people were just pushing things under the rug, sweeping things under the rug. Shh, don't say nothing. Don't worry, we're taking care of everything. We got it. Hey, information man. Hey, Ty. Hey, ladies who walked into the building. It's crazy. I do not understand this. They helped him to continue his predator behaviors and continue to molest little girls, take their innocence right under their parents' noses. These poor girls. And I wonder, does anybody out there think that these girls were all lying? Some of them couldn't remember the facts, dates, times. Does that mean that they were lying because their stories aren't consistent? I wonder.
Was obtained from C-SPAN. Some in the gymnastics community maintain that Rhonda's dismissal in the wake of the Nassar scandal was appropriate. Rhonda, who is now working in Australia, told us, "I've always championed for the strong athlete, the athlete voice, but also the education of the athletes, parents, and coaches."
After Aly spoke with Fran, Aly realized that she hadn't told her what she knew about Michaela Maroney. Again, here's Jessica.
Things clicked. She realized what had happened. She tried many times to get back in touch with USA Gymnastics and tell them, there's more I've thought of. I really want to talk to Fran again because there's more details I'd remembered. I've put things together. I really want to talk to her. USA Gymnastics would not let her talk to Fran again. Both of the gymnasts said that Fran needed to talk to Michaela Maroney.
Both Fran Sepler and Steve Penny warned Aly not to talk about the investigation. Aly later said she felt these comments were attempts to silence her. In a statement, Fran Sepler said that, quote, "The conclusions reached about the intent of my text message are understandable because Aly Raisman wasn't aware that USA Gymnastics had not told me about Aly's post-interview telephone call. She said that she was, quote, not advised that Aly had requested another meeting with me or that Aly wanted to share more information, clarify her prior statements, or provide additional names. Had I been made aware of Aly's phone call or apprised in any other way that Aly wanted to share more information, I would have jumped on a plane immediately to re-interview her. But that never happened because I wasn't aware that Aly had more she wanted to say." Fran said that USA Gymnastics had left her, too, in the dark, and that she was only told that Aly wanted Sepler to know that she would make calls on my behalf to other athletes. Based on that, Fran said, I texted Aly and thanked her for her interest, but explained to her that the investigative process was underway. I did not intend to silence Aly or anyone else, and I was never told to do so. I am the one who pursued the interview with a third athlete within days after my interview with Aly, leading to my conclusion, which I immediately reported to USA Gymnastics, that abuse had occurred and needed to be reported to law enforcement. A spokeswoman for Aly Raisman did not respond to requests for comment.
That's sad, right,
Meanwhile,
Ty?
Larry quietly disappeared from gymnastics competitions, but there was no public explanation as to why. The hiatus would not be sustainable in the tightly knit community, Larry knew.
They then helped Nassar, worked with Nassar. You could use the term colluded, perhaps, to come up with excuses for why Nassar wasn't going to be at meets.
A lawyer working with USA Gymnastics emailed with Larry in July 2015 about a possible cover story for his absence from events, according to emails obtained by the Indianapolis Star. "Can we just say that I'm sick?" Larry replied. "That would make more sense to everyone. Would that be okay?" The lawyer, Scott Himsel, responded, "We'll let Ron know to advise people that you weren't feeling well and decided to stay home." The Ron that Scott Himsel refers to is Ron Gallimore, the former chief operating officer of USA Gymnastics, who has also held roles with the International Gymnastics Federation, the worldwide governing body for the sport.
We now know that Ron Gallimore was part of communicating Nassar's excuses, these made up, falsified, fake, big fat lies about why he wasn't at these competitions.
Ron resigned his position in November 2018, nearly a year after Larry was sent to prison. Scott Himsel did not respond to requests for comment from the Indianapolis Star, which first obtained the emails.
You see, these girls tried to get help. They wanted to tell people, they told people what was going on, and people were still sweeping it under the rug because he was a superstar doctor. R. Kelly is a superstar singer. So people are going to be out there spinning lies, telling stories just to protect the predator. They don't want to believe it's true. But you know what? There's strength in numbers. Like what happened in the past with R. Kelly, it was only one girl, one tape. It didn't work. He was able to control that situation. Manipulated the government. Lied. Falsified documents. Paid off witnesses. Intimidated them. He even had Richard Arline mess and tamper with the juror and made sure that the juror said that, oh, he's a good man. We didn't know who that person was, but now we do. Because according to the transcripts, it was Richard Arline who reached out to that juror back in 2008. He admitted it in court. So, how about that one, Levi and crew? Debate that one. I want to hear that one. I want to hear that. R. Kelly is not getting away with it anymore because there's strength in numbers. Strength in numbers. I'm glad all these girls came out. I'm glad the documentary came out. All of this was done to make people aware of what R. Kelly was doing. Make people aware of the shit that people were hiding and covering up all these years. It's all out now. R. Kelly has no rock to hide under. He has no money to cover up his tracks anymore. I'm glad the Mute R. Kelly movement came out and did what they had to do to stop his finances. He can't do this anymore. It's time for him to stop. He might have started to change in the late 2016, 2017, by having 19-year-olds with them. Like Hallie Calhoun. He had to try to do it right. Make it look good. Like he did with, what's her name? His wife, after Aaliyah. He used Andrea. He didn't love that woman. He used her. His people were probably whispering in his ear like, yo, you need to find yourself a wife. You got to try to kill these rumors. You got to make it look good, man. He saw Andrea being all cutesy and all this and all that. And he said, you know what? That's the one I'm going to get. That's the one right there. I'm going to get her right there. She said R. Kelly pursued her, whatever. She kept saying, he, no. But then she went for it. She gave him a shot. And it was after the whole Aaliyah situation. Like I said, that was all just a cover-up. Then he had 3 babies, but nobody knew he was married. Nobody knew he had kids until he got locked up. Everybody was like, wait a minute. When did R. Kelly get married? What? When did he have a baby? What? What? Don't he still have girls trapped in the closet? I'm confused. He's a straight predator, just like Larry Nassar. Predator. Straight up. Larry Nassar messed with little girls. He's a straight pedophile to the fucking fullest extent. And he's where he needs to be, and R. Kelly is where he needs to be. And that's it, that's all. Enough is enough with the shenanigans. R. Kelly is done. Give it up.
Former law firm Fager, Baker, Daniels issued a statement saying its work is guided by our firm's core values, which include honesty, integrity, respect, and service. Citing client confidentiality, the firm declined to comment further.
On July 25, 2015, Steve Penny called Scott Blackman, the chief executive of the U.S. Olympic Committee, seeking guidance, according to the Wall Street Journal. Steve said that an athlete had described being sexually assaulted by a team doctor to an investigator that USA Gymnastics had hired. According to the Journal, Scott told Steve to, quote, do what he had to do, but did not provide any further guidance to USA Gymnastics. 2 days later, Steve Penny passed information on to the FBI about 5 weeks after he initially heard the concerns about Larry. Here's Jessica from Gymcastic.
So here we are, 20 years in to people reporting this to mandatory reporters and police, and finally, Steve Penny contacts the FBI. So 5.5 weeks passed between the time that Maggie's coach told a USA Gymnastics representative and USA Gymnastics contacted the FBI.
In a statement, a USA Gymnastics spokeswoman said that, quote, due to scheduling challenges with the athlete and her family, the first athlete interview did not occur until July 11th. Interviews with the second athlete occurred on July 17th, and the third athlete interview was conducted on July 24th. After learning of information suggesting that Nassar sexually abused a gymnast, USA Gymnastics contacted the FBI on the next business day, July 27th, and met with the FBI on July 28th. On July 29th, 2015, USA Gymnastics legal counsel advised Nassar that he would not attend USA Gymnastics activities. But the FBI didn't take action immediately either.
Aly Raisman's mother, Lynn, emailed Steve Penny and Rhonda Fain in August for an update on the investigation. She also noted that Larry had recently sent Aly a text to congratulate her after a meet. In our interview with Rhonda, she emphasized that she and many others were in the dark and were only told that the investigation was in the FBI's hands and they were not to discuss it with anyone. The next year, she recalled, on the flight home from Rio, an Olympic athlete's mother asked me what was taking so long with the FBI investigation. I told her I had no answer because I wasn't privy to any information and was not allowed to know. This was frustrating for me. Here's Jessica O'Byrne.
And I think that nothing ever would have happened with the FBI, except that the spring of 2016, Steve Penny, instead of going to the Michigan or Indianapolis FBI, he flew to LA and he went to the LA FBI. I think that this happened after he had a meeting with Michaela Maroney. He had a lunch with her. He personally apologized to her and said, I failed you. And then he went to the FBI and reported again. The FBI's bureau actually started doing interviews and investigating. And that's the first time that the parents of Maggie Nichols heard from an FBI agent. Wow. And to this day, as far as we know, the FBI has never executed a single search warrant in this investigation.
In a statement, a USA Gymnastics spokeswoman said that, quote, after the initial report to the FBI in July 2015, USA Gymnastics remained in contact with the Indianapolis Bureau and understands that the FBI contacted one or more athletes. USA Gymnastics later learned that the FBI had transferred the matter to another jurisdiction. Wow. As time passed, USA Gymnastics became concerned that it had not received any updates about the investigation. Then board chairman Paul Perilla contacted the FBI's LA Bureau in April 2016. Mr. Perilla and Steve Penny then met with 2 agents with the Los Angeles Bureau in early May. USA Gymnastics continued its cooperation with the FBI following this meeting. During this process, USA Gymnastics respected the privacy of the athletes involved in this matter.
Wow.
In the end, the agency would take about a year to act on that tip, for reasons that are still unclear.
A year.
Whether people were trying to avoid distractions from the Olympics or not is unclear. But that's another year that Larry was allowed to see patients and to control the narrative of his life and career. Another year that those who were abused were left wondering if he would continue to abuse or retaliate. Another year during which those who had come forward felt their courage was for nothing. A spokesperson for the FBI declined to comment.
Excuse me. They felt like all that was for nothing. A whole year and still nothing. Are you kidding me? And he's hiding out, pretending to be sick while they're scrambling on what to do about this situation. That is ridiculous. That is sad. That's like, they say that these girls didn't go to the police. There are some girls who did go to the police. They did take out police reports on R. Kelly. And the cops said, well, we can't help you out with this because there's not enough clear evidence, but maybe you should go see a lawyer. And that's exactly what the girls did. They went to go see a lawyer. Take it out in civil court. Sue them, sign an NDA, move on. Sweep it under the rug. Protect the image of the predator. That's what it's about. If you guys notice that when I do my closing of my show, the last thing you see is a little girl with a sign that says, why are pedophiles more protected than me? And that's a fact. That is a fact. These little girls here were white little girls. They weren't black little girls. They were white little girls. And they weren't protected. So it's not about black or white. It's about power and money. That's what it's about. It's not about black or white. It's not about bringing the black man down. It's about stopping predators from creeping because they have power and money and fame and people to back them up. That's the problem. That's what we need to stop. That's why all these things are happening. Because people that are higher up are getting away with all this dirty shit they're doing, underhanded, sick, perverted stuff, and it's time that they not get away with it. Time is up. It's time for people to be held accountable for their actions. Who gives a shit how much money you have? Who gives a shit how much you've contributed to society? You're a bad man and you need to be locked up. Period. Let's continue. Exactly, information man. Wow.
Chapter 14. Larry's retirement.
On September 27th, 2015, Larry wrote a soliloquy on Facebook. "It has been a wonderful time for me," he wrote, recapping his career from high school in 1978 through years of working with elite gymnasts. He said that the Getterts had been, quote, an amazing influence on my life, and I've learned so much from them over the years, and that he couldn't thank them enough. He recounted how after 2 semesters in medical school, he'd been kicked out and a panel of doctors and professors told him that, quote, I was spending too much time in the gymnastics gym and not enough time studying for medical school. Larry had begged, successfully, for Michigan State to put him on a 5-year rather than a 4-year course to finish medical school, he said. He talked about the foundation he started that, quote, combined my two worlds of family and gymnastics. He made the bizarre and inaccurate claim that, quote, one of the things I am most proud of is the fact that we have not had an anorexic or bulimic on the national team since 2001. Larry wrote, quote, we changed the culture of gymnastics. With the Carollis, Larry claimed a familial relationship. Marta Carolli and I had many, many arguments over the years, he said. But as Marta once said to me, we are like husband and wife. We have our disagreements, but it is always about what is best for the children. Publicly, it looked like a classy retirement, the ending of decades of devoted service to the gymnastics community.
Larry was a volunteer for USA Gymnastics, but a full-time employee at Michigan State. According to court records, a large portion of his job description at Michigan State was for outreach, and that apparently covered everything he did for USA Gymnastics. It was Michigan State that technically employed Larry when he was working with the girls at the Carolli Ranch. For decades, USA Gymnastics could have argued that it didn't know anything was amiss with Larry, but now officials there definitely knew. Upon his retirement, Larry was still listed on the U.S. Olympic Committee's website as part of its national medical network, thus helping him to overcome any looming concerns parents or athletes may have had about his credentials. If you wanted to know if your child should see Larry, a Google search made it look as though he still had the Olympic Committee's seal of approval. Nor is there any evidence that anyone from USA Gymnastics called Michigan State University, Larry's church, autism advocacy groups in Michigan, or Holt High School, where he sometimes worked as a sports doctor for its athletes. These were all organizations where Larry had access to children.
Oh, wow. Oh.
After Larry supposedly had left USA Gymnastics in 2015, the organization engaged in at least one non-disclosure agreement with an athlete who had complained about Larry. This practice has been common in companies for decades, but has since come under fire. The gist of most non-disclosure agreements, or NDAs, is that one party, in this case the athlete, agrees to not talk publicly in exchange for something from the organization, usually money. Many organizations historically have relied on NDAs to prevent bad news from getting out, to try to move on from a scandal, as well as to try to stop those who have been wronged from pursuing future litigation. They've been criticized as efforts to try and silence people, particularly those trying to blow the whistle on bigger wrongdoing.
NDAs need to go. NDAs, these companies need to stop with these NDAs. NDAs originated for secrets of corporations that dealt with like secret recipes or ingredients and, trade. That's what it was meant for. Not this bullshit of covering up sexual assault. The NDAs have to go. NDAs have to go. They should be what they were made for. And that's for the trade business. Like if you wanted to share a secret recipe, a cooking recipe with me, right? Or if I worked at a company that made, let's say for instance, I work for Dunkin' Donuts, right? They come out with this new donut, a new recipe of a donut. I am making this recipe for them. I'm the one that's baking these in this bakery shop. So I have to know the ingredients of this secret recipe. So in order for me to do this job, I would have to sign an NDA agreement stating that I will not give out the secret recipe to no one. That's what NDAs were originally made for. Trading. I'm going to secretly buy this building. I don't want nobody to know about it. Who's my partner? Sign this NDA agreement. You're a silent partner. Shh. These corporations, entertainment industries have abused the NDAs, and it needs to stop. It needs to be changed. So NDAs was issued to silence victims. That's what they use it for now. This is what they use it for. Right. It shouldn't be for covering criminal actions. That's not what NDAs were made for. It should not be that way. This needs to stop. Let's continue. These ladies were so brave, just like these girls that came out on R. Kelly. Brave. What's up, honey? Every last victim of sexual assault that has come out against someone powerful, God bless them for their courage. Whether you believe them or not, God bless them for their courage to come forward. It takes a lot to come forward, man. It's never easy, and it's never 1, 2, 3. Never. And if you're not a victim, you will never understand it. Ever. You don't know what it is to be embarrassed, ashamed. You think that these girls wanted to come out? You think these girls are lying about them having sexual transmitted diseases that R. Kelly gave to them? Do you think they wanted to come out and say, yes, I have an STD? No. But they had to make everyone aware. I went through this torture that he did to me. And I'm not the only one. And there's strength in numbers. Believe that. That's why these men are going down. Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby, Jeffrey Epstein, Larry Nassar, Keith Raniere, R. Kelly. Strength in numbers. It doesn't matter when it happens. It's how it happens. Let's continue.
After enduring years of abuse by Larry, Michaela Maroney was at a crisis point, having left the sport altogether. She was in need of funds to pay for her counseling. In May 2016, well before there were any public allegations against Larry, and before Team USA headed to the Rio Games that summer, Michaela's lawyer sent a demand letter to USA Gymnastics. Both parties agreed to wait until after the games to begin negotiations. In December 2016, Michaela, represented by the famed lawyer Correa, signed a $1.25 million settlement agreement. In exchange for the money, Michaela was not supposed to discuss what had transpired. If she violated the agreement, she would face a fine of $100,000. Correa, who represented Michaela in the discussions, declined to comment. Later, USA Gymnastics issued a statement saying that it would not be enforcing that NDA. But as
you see that? That's exactly what happened with R. Kelly and these girls. The government is not forcing those NDAs. Those shits are null and void because he was a predator trying to cover up his crimes. So therefore, these NDAs don't count. And none of these girls owe R. Kelly shit. R. Kelly owes them. And every other mother predator out here. They don't owe them nothing. These girls are owed. They are due reparations. They are owed. Fuck the predators. They don't need shit. Don't nobody owe them nothing. They owe the state. They owe these girls, these victims. That's what they owe. I wish somebody would come up here right now and try to debate me on some shit.
But as the Summer Olympics in Rio began, it seemed as if Larry was still in the clear. Chapter 15. Rachel's Moment.
USA Gymnastics knew about this in 2015, yet none of their policies and procedures changed at the ranch and with the national team until the public got wind of this during the 2016 Olympics.
The Fierce Five at the London Games included some of the most talented American gymnasts ever to compete. But the Rio Games in 2016 was a coronation of sorts for someone who many say is one of the best athletes of all time, Simone Biles.
Simone was different. She's a phenomenon that you can't put back in the bottle.
Most of the storylines about the American gymnastics team centered around her and the news that this Games would be Marta Karolyi's last as the national team coordinator. Simone was flanked by two of the big names from 2012, Aly Raisman and Gabby Douglas, as well as the accomplished gymnasts Laurie Hernandez and Madison Koshin. Not traveling with the team for the first time in decades, however, was Larry Nassar.
Then, on the eve of the Olympics, on August 4th, 2016, the Indianapolis Star published the first of a series of articles called Out of Balance. They detailed abuse in the gymnastics world and the efforts by USA Gymnastics to cover it up. It was a broader story about coaches, including William McCabe and Mark Schiefelbein, who were allowed to prey on young athletes, even as USA Gymnastics sat on stacks of complaints about the coaches and did nothing. It bore similarities to the articles Scott Reed of the Orange County Register had published in 2011, and though the characters had changed, the abuse had not.
At the Olympics, the reaction to the Star investigation seemed, well, odd. I was in Rio working as a producer for NBC Sports, and while gymnastics wasn't my beat, I noticed that the story kind of got lost in the general news shuffle, amid worries about security and Zika, and coverage of the sports events themselves, not to mention the nutty escapades of swimmer Ryan Lochte and his teammates. Steve Penny, the president of USA Gymnastics, did write a statement in response the day after the first article came out. Regrettably, he wrote, "Preventing sexual abuse is not as easy as it should be. There have been times when the organization has been hamstrung by a hearing process mandated by its compliance with the Ted Stevens Olympic and Amateur Sports Act." The Ted Stevens Olympic and Amateur Sports Act is the congressional statute that Nancy Hogshead McCarr and others had argued about in terms of what it meant for the U.S. Olympic Committee's role in preventing child abuse.
Steve Penny also wrote that, quote, "Other times, the investigations themselves have taken frustrating twists and turns, including dealing with situations that had already been addressed in a court of law, where USA Gymnastics has no oversight, occurred more than 30 years ago, or are the subject of ongoing investigations by law enforcement officials." It's possible that he may have been including Larry Nassar. At that point, Steve Penny had known for a year that Larry was being investigated for complaints, including complaints by Aly Raisman. The letter concludes, USA Gymnastics remains committed to doing what is necessary to address this challenging issue. That opinion was not widely shared. Back in Washington, United States senators had read the Indianapolis Star's series and wrote to Steve Penny, raising concerns about sexual abuse allegations in the sport.
The Star's articles found an important audience in at least one of Larry's former patients.
I had 3 kids at that point. My girls were barely 13 months apart, and my youngest at the time was teething. And so I was actually in my kitchen. I was cleaning my kitchen. I had my baby strapped to my back, and I opened my computer, and I had happened to leave the Facebook window open from the night before, and it was a trending news story in the sidebar, and I saw it, clicked on it, and I read it. And my first thought was, I was right. I was right. They've been covering up abuse.
More than a decade had passed since Rachel Denhollander saw and was abused by Larry. In the intervening years, Rachel had finished law school, married, and had 3 children. The file of research sat on her hard drive, and then suddenly, the Star reporting surfaced. Standing there, reading the story in her kitchen, she saw something else. an opportunity to speak up.
I knew people were paying attention. And for the first time, they were listening and believing that USAG might have a corrupt culture. It was the first time there was a chance to apply enough public pressure to get people to believe that their own medical doctor might be corrupt. And I knew if we didn't take this opportunity, if it didn't happen now, it would be years before the spotlight ever came back to USAG on that issue. And so I felt like it was now or never. And the next thought was, maybe there's something on Larry, and maybe the Indy Star can find it. And so I emailed the team right away and told them what had happened. And at that point, I thought the statute of limitations had expired for me to file the police report. And so I told them I can't file a police report anymore, but I will give you whatever you need if you can make the truth come out. And I called my husband and I said, I just did this. And he said, good, we'll see where it goes. Hopefully this will be it.
Rachel had the truth on her side, but here's what she didn't have: millions of dollars and a fleet of lawyers to defend her. Nor was she a high-profile athlete with piles of endorsements or medals. And she knew there had to be others who also had been harmed.
I was 100% confident that the only way to stop Larry was to meet him where he was most confident.
You see how she knew that the statute of limitations was up for her to make a claim. But she did what she felt was right, to make noise, to bring awareness, right? So that's the same exact thing that the Savages did. They knew that their daughter couldn't be put into the category of minors messing with R. Kelly. But they needed to make an awareness that their daughter is in a relationship with R. Kelly. And the fact is that there's a problem because he's isolated their daughter from communicating with them, as well as the fact that their daughter was being sexually abused by having to be coerced into doing all these sexual deviant acts, right? And pleasing R. Kelly's sexual gratifications. So these parents needed to make a stink and a noise because they were fighting up against somebody who was powerful. They had to do what they had to do, no matter what it was. They didn't know what to do, but they did everything they could, and they made noise, and that noise needed to be made. And then everything else started trickling behind. And then everything else from R. Kelly's way, way past started coming up again too. And then we all noticed everything and we said, holy snap. This guy's done patterns of behavior. He's been doing this shit for 30 years. We just thought it stopped at the girl at the tape. But no. There was this girl and that girl and this girl and that girl, and then there was boys in between. And we're supposed to believe he's innocent and everybody's lying? Get the fuck out of here. Miss me with that bullshit.
Very publicly, and to do it without flinching. He would very easily overshadow an anonymous survivor. And so everything that we ultimately released with the Indy Star, the decision to use my name and face to allow them to record the video, every graphic detail that I chose to release, everything was released for a very specific purpose, to force him to confront very specific accusations publicly, because my hope was that it would be what was needed to reach other survivors.
Rachel knew that going public meant taking on some risk.
It meant that it would be a much bigger story, that there would be a lot of internet dialogue about it. And I knew that it would be public record forever. There would be no taking it back once I did it. But I also felt like this was the one thing I could do for all the little girls that I couldn't protect for 16 years.
On August 14th, with the Rio Olympics underway and just 10 days after the Indianapolis Star published its first article, Larry posted on Facebook that he would be running for a school board post in Michigan. This was a man who knew he had been let go from USA Gymnastics for allegations of sexual assault, and who had already defended himself in front of the police for other allegations, at least twice. And he was running for school board.
As soon as I found out I could file the police report, I did that.
The statute of limitations had not, in fact, run out. So Rachel called the Michigan State University Police, the same organization that had questioned Larry in 2014 about Amanda Tomashow's complaint.
The initial interview was about 2 hours long.
This time, another police officer took the case. Her name was Detective Andrea Munford.
Well, look at that. She found out a miracle. A miracle. She could go forward and do some charges on Larry Nassar. And you know what? That helped to bring out more girls. More girls came forward. Thank God that Rachel made a stink. Thank God the Savages made a stink. Because Aaliyah's parents didn't do it. Aaliyah's parents didn't do it. They took R. Kelly's money and ran. Right? So, I don't understand. So, now, is Aaliyah a gold digger? Is her family members gold diggers? Huh? To y'all supporters, do you think R. Kelly's, not R. Kelly's, Aaliyah's parents were gold diggers? Huh? Do you? I want to know.
Detective Munford declined to comment.
3 days later, Detective Munford came down with the Title IX investigator, and they did another 2.5-hour interview. And it was very, very painful. It was a very difficult interview to do. That being said, I think Detective Munford handled it in the best possible way. And if we had more detectives like she was, we would have a much, much better statistic on sexual assault being reported and prosecuted. After I returned home from filing my police report, Detective Munford called me and she said, "I want you to know that someone else actually filed 2 years ago."
I was in my car, just got out of a vet appointment with my dog. I got a phone call from an East Lansing number, and it was Andrea Munford, that sweet, sweet angel. And she was calling to tell me, I had never spoken with her before, but she was calling to say that they had gotten another complaint that was just like mine. It was going to be in the paper soon, and she wanted to prepare me because I wasn't alone. She also wanted to know if I would be willing to reopen my police investigation if need be.
Why did these girls go to the media? Huh? Why did they go to the media? Because the cops didn't do anything. The police weren't doing anything. It's the same reason why these girls went to the media for R. Kelly. The police weren't doing anything. Nobody was doing anything. Nobody was doing anything. That's why these girls went to the media. It's not because they wanted to take anybody down and be liars and all this and that and make books and this and all of that. This young lady made a book. This is her book. This is Rachel's moment. Rachel made this book, Twisted. She's making money off of her story and everybody else's. She's bringing awareness, letting people know. For those who don't know, who weren't there, who weren't paying attention to the news, other people can follow. other girls can come out and stop being scared. This right here brings courage to other victims to come forward about their predators. Whether it's your Uncle Bob, your cousin Joe, the policeman down the block, the fireman down the block, the doctor, the lawyer, your teachers, coaches, your priests. It's everywhere. It's time that people come forward. It's time that people stop sweeping things under the rug. Like this is okay. This is not okay. This is not okay. None of this is okay. It doesn't matter who is doing it. People are out there doing it. That's the point. And people need to be brought to justice. And that's the point. Period.
I said yes. We've called her and she's willing to participate again. And that meant the world to me because I knew what it would be like to file a police report and not be taken seriously. And the fact that Amanda was willing to come back and to stand by me. And I didn't know who she was. And that was just an incredible gift. And I have so much respect for her for doing that.
I just hung up the phone. And I was in the car with my girlfriend at the time. And I was like, I knew it. I knew it. I was not the only one. I was totally sexually assaulted.
And then a few days later, I heard from Bree. And she said, I filed a police report. I said, oh, I know. In 2014. She said, no, in 2004. And I said, what? You're not the one from 2014? And she goes, there was someone in 2014. Because none of us knew about each other, of course.
Oh my gosh. How many are there? There are going to, and I told her, I was like, there are going to be so many girls. This is going to be bad. And then it was.
But filing the police report meant that Larry would be notified.
And at the point I filed the police report, there was no guarantee the story was going to press. So Larry knew that I had come forward, and there was about a 2-week span where I was on record publicly with Larry, and the investigation was underway, and it was just me and him. And I knew I needed that story to come out, and yet it was the last thing I wanted to have happen. But not having it come out was going to be worse than if it did come out, because then it would still be just me and Larry. So waiting for that story to drop was honestly just awful. It really was.
On August 30th, 2016, Detective Munford brought Larry in for another round of questioning. In the video of the questioning, Larry walks into a small, stark, white-walled room with 3 brown chairs on drab gray carpet. Detective Munford sits across from him at a small table with a phone and a box of tissues. She asks about his medical techniques. Larry has his arms in his lap and leans in, occasionally resting his forearms on his thighs. He seems defensive from the start.
The difficulty is with the hands-on is I'm trying very hard to do things where I'm not being nearly as invasive, but it compromises things. So I am trying to modify that and having students there and having family members there, and I document in the chart, so-and-so's in the room, so my documentation's changed. I'm trying my best to do it over closed. And that's sometimes the hard thing is the tightness, it's like the clothes gets in the way, But so I'm very, there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about that, because that was a very scary thing, in my life, obviously. So, and I don't want to get into it. So I was like, oh my God, what happened? Like my heart is hurting, it's like, what the heck, So I hope, that I've made the appropriate changes, because it's, and I've done a lot of education. I'm really trying hard at educating so that I, and I always thought I was good at educating.
Eventually, Detective Munford interrupts him.
This is a little bit of a personal question, so I'll just be totally honest with you. I mean, you have these young girls in there, they're athletes.
But they're usually with their parents. They're usually with their, parents, So that's why I explain a lot.
They're athletes, they have lovely figures. They're very cute girls. Do you ever get aroused during these exams?
Do I get aroused during the exam?
Yeah, but do you ever get an erection?
Obviously you don't, you know what I mean? So
is there a reason that you would during an exam?
I shouldn't be getting an erection during an exam.
Right. Well, this is why I'm talking to you about this, because this young girl and her mother both observed this on more than one occasion during treatment.
That it would get aroused during the exam.
Visibly erect penis. Not exposed, but through your clothes.
I can't explain that because that should, when I'm working, I'm working. You know what I mean? So I don't.
Well, you can understand why this would be
Well,
of concern.
Yeah.
You know, that you didn't wear gloves.
Larry argues with Detective Mumford, but it appears she isn't buying it. And she apparently does something others had failed to do before. She points out that what Larry is describing is very different than what his patient said happened.
What you're describing to me is very different than how she's describing her experience.
Detective Munford pushes him on his technique, and Larry pushes back.
That's not how she's describing it. Now, your fingers are vaginally penetrating her.
What?
And then your thumb anally penetrated her.
No.
So I don't see where that falls in line with that technique.
Right, and I don't see how that would be accurate.
More than once, more than one treatment.
I'm just working the floor, you know what I mean? But I would not be. How would I be putting my thumb and fingers, you know, like that? That would not be correct.
And she explains to Larry that often someone who is experiencing sexual assault may not say something.
Have you ever had someone do something that made you feel uncomfortable and you doubted saying anything?
No, you know, like you mean like.
Anything. It doesn't have to be physically anything. Where you thought, I don't feel right about this.
Yeah, you get your gut feeling. Yeah. I see what you're saying.
And your instinct was probably correct.
Your gut. You know, I mean, but that. I don't know. I'm just saying, yeah, you have your sense. You know, I mean, everyone has like a sense about it.
Detective Munford says Rachel saw Larry 5 times, and each time, Larry went beyond what her understanding of any medical treatment was, and that observers could see that Larry had an erection.
Has that ever happened in an exam or treatment before?
You know, I mean, you are, you know, I mean, I'm focused on my treatment. You know, I mean, I'm not trying to gain any type of sexual pleasure out of working with my patients. Okay, I mean, that's what you're trying to ensue or whatever.
That's what I'm asking you.
Right, and I'm saying no, I don't get sexual pleasure out of working with my patients. That's not what being a physician is. Not what I'm about.
Over the course of the interview, Larry's story changes. At first, he says,
"Do I get aroused during the exam?"
Yeah, but do you ever get an erection?
Well, obviously you don't.
Then later,
I'm not purposely trying to get arousal from doing any treatment. I mean, come on. You know, I mean, I'm not purposely trying to gain some type of sexual gratification.
At first, he's like, oh, what a son of a, oh, man. He's like, you're not supposed to get aroused. I mean, no, it doesn't happen. You know, what are you talking about? I'm a professional. And now he's like, well, you know, but if it happens, it could happen. You know, that doesn't mean that I'm trying to get off. Boy, yo, I swear to God, I wish we could see an interrogation of R. Kelly. I would love to have seen the investigators talking to him. Like, seriously. And I'm pretty sure the lawyers were there. I'm pretty sure he was like, I'm not talking to nobody. The lawyers were probably like, he's not talking. So they probably just like, you know, man.
Out of doing that. That's not what I'm doing. Okay, that you know, if there was arousal, it's. I mean, like it would be because of whatever. I don't know, but I'm not trying to. You know, I mean, I don't know. When you're a guy, sometimes you get an erection. You know what I mean? But I don't. It's.
That's you get an erection when you're aroused.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. Like I'm just saying that you know I'm not trying to. How do you say this? And if I had an erection, I understand why I would have an erection from doing the treatment. You know what I mean? From what I'm doing. Okay. And that's rather embarrassing. You know what I mean? It would be rather embarrassing. Okay, I mean, to have that happen. Okay, so it's just like, that's not appropriate.
Detective Munford tells Larry that she needs to leave the room to get a business card. There's a moment in the video when Larry sits alone in the room, his hand on his head, leaning forward. He rubs his brow, and you can hear him sigh. You can see the bald spot on the crown of his head. It's impossible to know what was going on in his mind at this moment. But for the first time in more than 20 years, his way of going through the world is being seriously challenged. And finally, he may not be able to get away with it.
Exactly, Ty. That's why he was sitting in there drowning. And that's exactly what she described. Him sitting there with his head down, wondering what the hell is about to happen to him. Because he's done. I would like to see his first deposition with Tamika. I think that's her name. You mean Tiffany? With Tiffany, mommy. I would love to have seen that one. Wow. If we could only get a hold of that. So like you said, Ty, he was sitting in there. He's sitting in there right now with that investigator drowning. And now she walked out the room to give him a minute, collect his thoughts. Let's continue.
He seems to know, not necessarily that he's done something wrong, but that he's been caught. Detective Munford wraps up the interview and asks Larry for the best number to reach him at. She stands and opens the door for Larry, who shuffles out.
In the week after the interview with Detective Munford, Larry began to fire off multiple emails to his dean at Michigan State, William Strample, about how he could change his methods. On September 6, 2016, a reporter from the Indianapolis Star reached out to Larry for comment on Rachel Denhollander's claims. Larry forwarded that request to Dean Strample, adding, quote, "I spoke to my attorney, and he said I should talk to the reporter to prevent the story from being one-sided, so that I can deny any wrongdoing. I'm asking for legal assistance from MSU as to how to handle this. Should I work through my own attorney or through MSU or both? I am so sorry about this mess."
Oh, he's so sorry about this mess. Oh, pendejo, he ain't sorry shit.
Strample responded that the university lawyers, quote, declined to provide any specific legal advice, but he did append some recommendations from the Michigan State Public Relations Office, including that if Larry were to do an interview, he should be, quote, very aware not to take the tone of blaming the victim, and be sure to tell the reporter that the medical treatments were science-based and helped hundreds, if not thousands, of women.
Oh, God.
Good luck, Dean Strample wrote. I am on your side. And then...
And this is what the dean writes to him. Wow. Wow.
After decades of abuse, the first major news story about Larry Nassar broke.
Chapter 16, Going Public.
I was actually watching Dancing with the Stars, and I was in the other room actually, and a commercial for the news came on, and it said famed Olympic doctor being accused of something, and it had to do with gymnastics. And I said, oh my gosh, I wonder who that is. And so I ran into the other room, and there was his face on the screen.
On September 12th, 2016, the Indianapolis Star published Rachel Denhollander's story of abuse at the hands of Larry Nassar. Another unnamed gymnast joined Rachel in her claims. In that moment, rumors became facts, dates, and places, all attached to a person with the first and last name who was steadfast in her claims. Rachel's on-the-record account quickly spread.
I knew Rachel Denhollander from when I was a little kid. We belonged to the same gym. I had known her and her family for a really long time, which is kind of why I was friends with her on Facebook.
One reader was Sterling Reithman, who had seen Larry as a patient as a child gymnast, around the same time Rachel had seen him in the early to mid-2000s. Sterling had also seen Larry in 2013, when she was a college diver.
And I saw it pop up on my Facebook newsfeed, and
that was kind of the day that changed everything. Because when I read that article, I instantly called my mom and I said, I'm really confused because that's the same treatment that I had done. So how could that be abuse?
Wow.
Morgan McCall, a dancer who had seen Larry, said that her mother was the first to mention the article to her. She was 16, sitting on her couch and packing up her dance bag for class when her cell phone rang. She could immediately tell from the tone in her mother's voice that the news was urgent.
And I just remember my mom calling me and saying, like, I want you to hear this from me first because you're going to find out somebody came forward saying that Larry abused them.
See, it's the same thing like with the girls from R. Kelly. One came out, the other one had to come out. They didn't realize that they were being abused. Same thing with the girls from R. Kelly. They did not realize that what they were going through was abuse, except for the physical beatings. Everything else, they didn't see that as abuse. He didn't make it seem like that to them. He coerced them in a way and brainwashed them in a way and used coercive control. Brainwashing, man. It works. Manipulation works. And he's been doing this shit for years. So he's a master at his craft. He did it with his people. He could do it with the girls. I mean, really, let's be real here.
My stomach dropped and I just couldn't believe it.
Trinae Gonsar was living in Puerto Rico and read the article about Rachel online.
I was like, that's my Larry. I can't believe this is happening. That's my Larry. I've talked about this doctor who's been my friend because he did carry Strug off the Olympic mats when she broke her ankle in the Olympics. And I'm like, that's my Larry. I thought for sure with her story that there would be doctors coming out of the woodwork to be on his side and that would be it.
Trinae reached out to the Nassars immediately.
I reached out to Larry and I reached out to Stephanie.
That's Larry's wife.
I was in Puerto Rico. I'm sending my love. Hope you guys are okay. Are the kids okay? Their replies were just, it's a really hard time. We thank you guys for your support so much.
We reached out to Stephanie Nassar and several other Nassar family members. None responded to our requests for comment. Tom Brennan, the gymnastics coach who referred patients to Larry, was blindsided by Rachel Denhollander's claims. He thought Rachel maybe just misunderstood what was going on. There was no way that a well-regarded doctor whom he regularly called for advice could be the same man who was being accused of child abuse.
The worst I ever heard was that he was odd. I never heard anything else bad from anybody about the whole thing. So when Rachel came out, I supported Larry at that point. I just did. And then actually I messaged him on Facebook and says, Larry, I heard that you've just been accused of molesting somebody when she was younger or abusing somebody when she was younger. I want you to know I'm in your corner. And he said, I appreciate that, Tom. I must have done this technique in over 1,000 girls. I do think that this whole thing is going to get worse before it gets better.
Oh my God.
And I said, well, listen, I got your back. But as soon as I got off that, as soon as I finished that message with him, I mean, literally as soon as I finished it, I said, you know what? I want to cover my butt here. I want to know how my girls feel about all of this. So I messaged every one of the girls that I had on Facebook. And I asked, listen, you don't have to give me any specifics. I want to know if anybody had any bad experiences with Larry Nassar. And I had a couple girls come forward and says, you know what, Tom, he seemed a little bit too handsy for me. And that was about the worst of it. That's all I needed to hear. I said, well, if you're telling me he's handsy and Rachel came out and said this thing, he no longer has my support. That's all I needed to know. All I needed to hear was one of my girls come forward and say anything. And I would have had her back immediately because I have no reason to not believe my girls. But I can find reasons not to believe Larry.
One of the people who received a message from Tom was Jamie Dosky, a gymnast who had been referred to Larry for her back pain when she was 12 years old. When the news broke, She was working as a hairdresser in Oxford, Michigan, about an hour and a half away from Lansing. She was in her 20s by then. Many years had passed from when she had quit the sport as a teenager.
The details of the actual procedure for all these years, that's what I've had done, and they're saying that this isn't an actual legit thing. The pieces kind of started falling into place from there. It clearly wasn't helping me. Would I have been able to prevent those surgeries if I actually would have been to an actual doctor? My husband helped me speak about it a little bit more. And then I started talking to Tom. He contacted us to say, okay, I need to know how you girls feel about this.
Jamie and her husband dated in high school when Jamie was a patient of Larry's, and she remembers that they had talked about his methods.
I would always say to him, I need to go see Larry, but it's always so awkward when I go in there. And my husband always said, I don't know. I don't know if that's actually, a procedure. And I'd say, yes, it is, Ryan. It's right. He's the Olympic doctor. He's who I've gone to since I was 12. So what he did must be right.
At 12 years old, this young little girl was being molested by this man. Imagine how Rashonda Landfair and Aaliyah felt to meet R. Kelly at the age of 12. Hey, Granny. Good morning from Sweden, my love. Good morning. You can imagine the manipulation he did to these little girls. They were 12 when he met them. 12. When R. Kelly met Rashonda Landfair and Aaliyah, they were 12. It didn't take long to manipulate them. They were 12. This little girl was 12 years old, and Larry Nassar had her convinced that what he was doing to her was a medical procedure. And she's debating with her husband at an adult age that what he was doing was right. And her husband's like, no, baby, I honestly think that he was abusing you, honey. You need to talk to somebody. And then when she realized she was in Puerto Rico, all the way from Puerto Rico.
The online comments on the story came in a fire hose. Message boards and Facebook groups brimmed with conversations about the case too, and a lot of them were critical. Not critical of Larry, but of Rachel.
There were immediately internet comments of, she's a washed-up gymnast who just couldn't hack it. I thought that was a little bit funny, to be honest, because at that point I was 31 and had 3 kids, and even if I was a washed-up gymnast, waiting 15 years to vindictively go after someone is just a rather odd thing to be accused of. But those were the things that were immediately said. I must be in it for money, even though I hadn't filed a civil suit. She's lying, she's making it up, wanting to attack a good man. Larry was running for a political office at that time for the school board, and so there was speculation that it was politically motivated. All of the things that survivors always hear. But an interesting dynamic with Larry is that you had an element of fame within the gymnastics community and rapport. But people also really loved him. You have some abusers and enablers that just occupy a place of prominence in the public eye, and people feel like they love these people just because they like the football team so much, they like the coach so much, or the school so much. And you had that element with Larry. But the people that...
Same elements with R. Kelly. The people around him love him. He can't be this way. You people are crazy. The girls are lying. Everybody's lying. Everybody wants revenge. They just want R. Kelly's money. They're gold diggers. They're fast girls. These poor girls went through the same thing. The same thing. Social media was attacking them. They were getting death threats because people loved Larry Nassar. The same way people love R. Kelly. It's the same shit. Different scenarios.
He abused and that he manipulated, he had very deep personal relationships with. And so there was an extreme emotional attachment to Larry that also really fueled a very vitriolic response.
Some, however, read Rachel's story and immediately saw themselves in her place. Melody Vanderveen, the dancer whom Larry had, quote, treated in his basement, reached out to the Indianapolis Star right away. She said that she thought something similar had happened to her. The Star connected her to Rachel, and Rachel pointed her toward the detectives working on her case. Melody filed her police report and a Title IX report that week, detailing the specifics of her abuse, including that some of it had occurred in Larry's basement. Her story here takes a turn that we, and definitely Melody, would have never predicted. Here's Melody.
The second I realized what had happened in my childhood, I immediately signed up to go to counseling because I understood what sexual abuse can mean for people in marriages if they don't have it dealt with. So my first thought is I need to prepare for if I start dating someone or if I'm going to get married, because I knew that this was going to be a long healing road. And then he showed up.
His name was Luke. She met him the same week she enrolled in counseling.
He worked at a local coffee shop, and I was in my senior year studying a whole lot, so I would go there almost every day. And he's a musician, and the second he saw me, he was very intrigued and started writing a whole album of songs about me. And the tables really turned when, during the season, I was talking a lot with detectives, Andrea Munford specifically, getting updates. So some of these phone calls would come midday when I had things to do. And since obviously, for me at least, the trauma was very fresh, that would often lead into a panic attack. So unfortunately, I had a panic attack in public at the coffee shop, and he immediately jumped out from behind the bar and walked right over to me and asked if he could pray with me. And that's kind of where our actual friendship blossomed and quickly turned into us dating. Little did he know I was afraid to date someone because I was trying to work through all this trauma stuff, and I didn't want to overwhelm a new relationship with this big news. So very quickly, he learned what happened. I remember the first week we started dating, I said, I don't really want to describe to you what happened, but I have my Title IX report. And so we sat there in silence and read my Title IX report on maybe the third day of us dating, and just sat there and cried in silence. And that's where it all began. And within 3 months, we had set our wedding date, and within the year we were married. But that was the best decision I ever made, was to invite Luke into this whole story, because he became my family through this whole process.
Wow. She went and she told this man what she went through, and he immediately embraced her, supported her, loved her, took care of her, embraced her. Hey, Diva Time. What's up, Mama? Good morning. That's special. That's like with Dominique. She left R. Kelly. She started a whole new life. I can imagine, her sitting there and telling him the things that she went through. I'm pretty sure she hasn't told him everything, In good time, things will come out little by little, or things may never come out. But I'm pretty sure she gave him her backstory, a little bit of her history, And he embraced her, and he accepted her, and he loved her. And he showed her tender, loving care and what it is to really be loved. And now she's happily married with a beautiful, beautiful baby girl. And for all these girls that have moved forward with life and are coping and just living, they will never forget. It will always be there. But life will go on. We are strong.
On September 15th, 3 days after the Indianapolis Star story was published, Larry wrote again to Dean Strample. Larry used the phrase "Me Too" a year before Harvey Weinstein was publicly accused of sexual assault and the hashtag made the rounds on the internet. "I am trying to take advantage of this time before the Me Too's come out in the media and the second media blitz occurs," Larry wrote, according to emails obtained by MLive.com. He worried that, quote, "The Indianapolis Star will make their next crucifixion of me on Monday. That is what I am emotionally prepared for." The next day, Larry wrote in an email to Dean Strample that the media has, quote, "killed me." And a few days later, according to court records, Larry brought his work laptop to a computer service store and paid $49 to completely wipe the device clean. The store deleted all of the data, including the operating system. Larry then turned the wiped laptop over to Michigan State. The former contents of that hard drive remain a mystery today.
He went and wiped out his whole computer and the system and then gave it to the fucking police. Are you kidding me? That's like R. Kelly putting everything in storage and keeping it in there in secret and not telling his lawyers he got a whole storage full of devices.
At some point that September, according to a police report obtained by Michigan Radio, Larry asked his protege at Michigan State, Brooke Lemon, to remove some patient records, which she did. He told her that he wanted to review the charts and try and identify a Jane Doe who had filed a federal lawsuit against him. Brooke Lemon had testified as an expert, not a witness, in Amanda Thomas Show's Title IX complaint, and had long been considered an ally of Larry. But apparently, according to a police report, she had second thoughts about removing the records and called an administrator. She returned the records to Michigan State officials and participated with the police investigation, but told the police she thought that the women complaining about Larry may have just misunderstood the treatments. A lawyer for Brooke Lemon declined to comment. A week after the Indianapolis Star story, Michigan State announced that it had fired Larry. Shortly after his termination, Kathy Klages, the Michigan State gymnastics coach whom Larissa Boyce told about Larry nearly 20 years prior, asked gymnasts to sign a card for him. Michigan State would not directly encourage members of the gymnastics team to speak out until February 2017, 5 months after Larry was fired. Eventually, Kathy Klages was charged with 2 counts of lying to authorities about whether she knew that Larry had sexually abused young women for decades.
Good for her.
A lawyer for Kathy Klages said in a statement that, quote, "Mrs. Klages is innocent of the allegations lodged against her, and we believe this will be proven at her trial." A spokeswoman for Michigan State said that, quote, "There was no unified effort from university leadership to discourage the gymnastics."
You see, they arrested somebody that they need to do that with R. Kelly. They need to arrest somebody else. They need to take down some other people, man.
Team from speaking or anyone else.
By November, dozens of women had come forward, alleging that Larry had abused them. Some of the complaints went back decades. Even with Larry out of his jobs at Michigan State and USA Gymnastics, even with Detective Munford on the case, even with the women who had joined in the accusations, Rachel Denhollander knew that some of the greatest challenges were ahead.
Well, I knew if we went to trial that it was going to be very difficult to overcome his charisma and just the automatic credentials and rapport that he would have by virtue of the fact that he's a doctor. And so my greatest fear was that I would come forward and that he would be able to continue, that he would be empowered to know that he couldn't be caught. And I really felt like that wasn't enough. Nothing ever would be.
Wow.
Rachel had good reason to be worried. In November 2016, 2 months after the Indianapolis Star article, Larry still received 2,700 votes for school board, or 21% of the vote. He didn't win one of the 2 seats, but the numbers show how deep and how wide his support was, even amid allegations of child sexual misconduct. Although Rachel heard from a couple of other survivors, she said she had to be careful about how and if she communicated with other survivors, even those who came forward publicly. The last thing she wanted to do was open herself up to the criticism that she had conspired or manufactured the charges against Larry.
And I felt like that was really difficult because I didn't have the benefit of getting to do any of the interviews with someone else. I couldn't talk to someone else about what I was going through. I couldn't have any kind of connection with the other survivors. It had to be me and me alone. And that was really hard. Wow. And it was also very painful because I cared so much for these women, especially the other charged victims once we got to that point, knowing what they were going to go through at the preliminary hearings and how they were going to have to testify. And I felt like there was just nothing I could do for them. I couldn't even know their names. Wow. In many ways, I was incredibly grateful because we got a detective who took it seriously, who had the skill to do that kind of investigation, who moved quickly and who moved very compassionately in moving the case forward. And so I was very, very thankful. It was incredibly frustrating, the situation as a whole. You know, even the idea of having been an attorney, I knew what the theory of the case was. I knew I was right. I knew the evidence was there, but I couldn't come in on my own credentials. And even if we got to trial, I wouldn't be coming in on my credentials. I would be entering the courtroom on the basis of what was done to me. And Larry would get to enter on the basis of who he was.
Wow.
On November 21st, 2016, Larry was charged in Ingham County with 3 counts of first-degree criminal sexual conduct with a person under 13. Officials said that they had received about 50 complaints from victims alleging sexual abuse by Larry. He was freed on a $1 million bond, but under the terms set by the judge, Larry actually had to pay only 10% of that, or $100,000, according to court records. The news in Michigan shook many connected to the Correa Ranch and the U.S. national team. According to Rhonda Fain's Senate testimony, Maggie Nichols' mother, Gina, texted Rhonda asking why Rhonda hadn't reported Larry sooner. A whole year had passed, and now a completely different group of women were coming forward in Michigan. Rhonda responded that she had reported the incidents and that Steve Penny said that he would handle it.
But Rachel Denhollander, who had been reading up on serial abusers, had another thing to say to detectives. She had a hunch that Larry wasn't just abusive to girls and women like her, that his abuse had a whole additional dimension to it.
He should never have gotten bail, period. He should have stayed where he was and not gotten bail.
Whether or not they would find it was the question. That was actually one of the first questions I asked Detective Mumford was, are you going to get his computers? Because I knew it was there.
And unbeknownst to her at the time, Melody Vanderveen's complaint would help trigger an even bigger break.
When I filed my report, we had a couple crime locations, potentially Holt High School, because he treated people there. We had Twist Stars, and then, of course, USAG stuff, because he went, with the Olympic team, and then primarily MSU Sports Med. So his house was another layer, another crime scene.
And it was there, at the Nassar home, that he would finally be trapped.
That's a fact, T-Bam.
Chapter 17. What went out with the trash?
Throughout his career, Larry often made videos and took photographs of his patients, using everything from a clunky camcorder to a GoPro. Some of that footage ended up in his PowerPoint presentations or on gymnasticsdoctor.com. But where was the rest of it, and what did it contain? It probably wasn't at Michigan State, at least not anymore, since he had wiped his work hard drive.
Melody's story about being treated in Larry's basement heightened police interest in his home as a place that they should search. They received a warrant to do that in September. On a crisp September day, Detective Andrea Munford, the same woman who had interrogated Larry in a small carpeted room weeks earlier and was now talking to multiple athletes about their abuse claims, got into a police car with a new weapon, the search warrant. Accompanied by her colleagues, she made the short drive to Larry's house. Once they arrived, they began to search the 1,500 square foot home. They scoured inside cluttered rooms, but on their way out, they spotted trash bins that had been set out by the curb and grabbed them. They took that trash to the police station, opened it and found disks and hard drives that contained 37,000 files of child pornography. Some of the material was labeled with Larry's name. It included videotapes that Larry himself had made. There were also images and videos that he had obtained of graphic child sex abuse, some of which involved infants.
There were quite a few people, including lots of Larry's patients, who had remained in doubt after Rachel came forward in the Indianapolis Star. But when the child pornography bust broke in the press in December 2016, that, coupled with the women's stories, made it very difficult to picture Larry as anything but a serial child molester. Here's Sterling Reithman.
That was really a turning point for me, that I realized that he was really living a double life and that he was not the man I thought he was, and that maybe this really did happen to me and that it wasn't just a lack of understanding of treatment. I didn't know what way was up. I was just like so confused by everything, because it makes you question if you know the difference between right and wrong. And it was making you question your own judgment skills. And so I did a lot of processing any way that I knew how. I did a lot of running. I did a lot of writing. And it was actually in that writing that I first officially told my mom, like, this is real. This is what happened. Excuse me. That's totally okay. After kind of doing that, I didn't know what I wanted to do, if I wanted to join the lawsuit, if I wanted to, if I just kind of wanted to process it in my own way and kind of file this and kind of live my life and let this play out elsewhere. And it took me a couple days, but I finally called my mom, and she said, you know, what do you want to do? And I told her, I said, I want to join the lawsuit. And she said, okay, we can do that. She was like, just like, what kind of brought you to that decision? And I said, you taught me to be a strong, independent woman. And if I don't do anything about this, I'm not who you raised me to be. And so she said, okay, I guess we're joining a lawsuit. And so, you know, that was a hard day, but it was also, I knew that I did the right thing, because as soon as I made that decision, I felt this huge weight come off my shoulders. And little did I know that, you know, now 2 years later, whatever we are, it was a decision that would definitely change my life. But had they not found the child pornography, I don't think that any of this would have happened. Wow. I think that the system would have crushed the women that have already come forward. I think that Larry would have talked his way out of it yet again. And while I have full faith in Rachel's ability to prevent that from happening, I think that it was also a huge moment of the stars aligning for that child pornography to be found.
The number of files that Larry had was so vast that the FBI was having trouble identifying all of the victims, according to people familiar with the case. Here's Melody.
I wanted to know, am I in these videos and photos? So I identified myself. I described what I looked like. It came back that they couldn't find anything because there are, like I said, too many people. And also I can't even fathom being the FBI person that had to watch and see what the heck was going on in those videos. Thankful for those people that helped navigate that, but I can't fathom how horrific it was to, I think enough was enough. They're like, we get the gist.
So wait, let me just pause on that for a second. So you ask the FBI, hey, am I in these videos? And their response is, there's so many people we don't know. Correct. What went through your mind?
Well,
wow. There's so many people. Wow. You know, that's like with R. Kelly, the police had stated that some of the girls that they seen and they found on these tapes, they couldn't find who they were. They had no way of identifying who the girls were on these tapes. They were only able to identify certain people. They weren't able to identify a lot of the girls that were on R. Kelly's tapes. So, you know, unless those girls came forward and said, I think I was probably one of those girls on that tape, you know, they'll never know.
Oh, so when the FBI said that, like, there are so many people, so I don't think we'll be able to identify you, but please tell us what you look like and things that would possibly identify you. And then it came up nothing because there were too many things. It was almost like I already knew that there were so many people. And in my impact statement, I mentioned this. There's not hundreds. There are thousands and thousands of women who are sexually abused by him. And people are like, oh my gosh, 100 came forward and now we're sort of at like 400. And I'm like, this is not even 10%, guys.
For Melody, there was also a horrifying kind of comfort in the weight of that evidence.
I knew for a fact that whether it's a year, 5 years, this guy was not coming out of jail because he had on tape videos of him molesting people. So I'm like, whatever my case is, I don't even have to prove it that much because we already have proof of his nature. So it also lifted like a load on me, feeling like I already knew my words are valid, but now they are already.
See, you see what she said right now? The same thing with the girls in the R. Kelly case. They didn't have to prove too much because there was other uncharged acts that were corroborating evidence to the girls' testimonies. That is why the uncharged acts were there as proof, evidence of what R. Kelly did to these girls to corroborate his crimes, to corroborate the evidence that they had, which was the other girls and boys, to prove that R. Kelly did these things to these girls because these other people had the same thing done to them.
Like, validated without me doing anything.
The escalation of the case was also having an impact on longtime Nassar family friend Trinae Gonsar.
So my husband and I talked about moving back to Michigan, and because I knew things were starting to roll with this, and it was like I was almost like I'd want to talk about it, but I didn't want to hear about it. I didn't want to keep seeing him everywhere. I didn't want to keep hearing about the case. But people knew, I mean, I was a gymnast from Lansing, Michigan. Everyone looked at me 50-50, just different. I believed in who he was. I believed in what he was doing, that it was medical. I believed he had our best interest in heart. That's what I thought. So it was a huge shift for me when I had to realize that I was wrong, like way wrong. And that I'm in the top tier of how many treatments that were done to me. You know, some one is no different than any one time is too many. But I was like closer to 900, they estimate. So like in a sense, almost like his practice body. So it's not the nicest thing to talk about.
For Rachel Den Hollander, the discovery of the child pornography confirmed her darkest suspicions.
I was home with 3 kids. I was home most of the time, either that or grocery shopping. When I got most information, investigators heard a lot of real life over the phone during those calls. So I was incredibly relieved when they found it, that they were able to find it, that he couldn't successfully destroy all of it. I also wanted to throw up because I have little girls and I have a little boy. And reading the descriptions, I saw a lot of the legal documents, the affidavits and the grand jury hearings and all of that. Reading the descriptions of what he was looking at was just horrific. And I remember standing in my kitchen so many nights and just crying and saying, who's going to find these little girls? Who's going to go find these kids?
This time, when the police arrested Larry, he was not permitted to leave on bail.
Excuse me, guys. Let me get some water. All right, now I got my slippers on too. I got my slippers on. I took off my sneakers. So, we are at the end of chapter 17. Okay, I'm gonna leave it here on chapter 17. We will continue with chapter 18 in part 3. Okay, and I'm going to, is this the right video? Let me make sure. Hold on. Okay. We're back. All right. Now, in this part, I found the video. It's 5 hours long, so we're not going to play the whole video, but we're going to play it in little parts. And we're going to at least go into at least another hour. All right, guys? So we'll be here till about 2:30, and then I'll end the live. And then we'll continue the rest in part 3. Because I also have the Senate hearing where the girls wanted an investigation open and to be done with the FBI and the gym, what is it, USA Gym, and everybody that was behind the scenes that didn't do their job and let this go on for years. And I think that that's what they should do with R. Kelly. Like, go after Sony. They knew that these things were going on, and they continued to let R. Kelly be the star that he was, instead of stopping him dead in his tracks when he needed to be stopped. So Sony has a lot to do with this too. Let me go to my screen and see what you guys are saying. Was he ever in Sweden? I don't know. I mean, he traveled around the world with these girls for many years. I don't think so, though. I'm not sure. I can't say yes. I can't say no, Granny. Victims, NDA, videos, iPads, texts, payoffs, bookkeeping, etc. A lot of mess went on. A lot of mess. She said his practice body. You know what I'm saying? That's what that little girl felt like at that time. Yeah, I'm fine, Mama. It's that I'm a little bit sick. I'm still getting over my cold, so I'm getting better though. I'm taking medicine, so I'm not as congested. But I still got a lot. I still got some in there, Mama. Yes, we will continue with chapter 18 from court. Yes. Yes. I watched that hearing. Yeah, the hearing that was deep. Girl, that hearing was deep. I watched it too. I didn't get to see the whole thing, you know what I mean? But I watched it. They helped RSK with money during his first trial. They did. They helped him with the money. They gave him an advance. I believe he borrowed money in advance to pay off these settlements. They helped him. They knew what he needed that money for. They knew he had complaints with minors. They knew. Yes, I said that too. All enablers, including record labels, accountants, police, family. Yes. Yes. Take them all down. Yes, it is. It was very, very deep and very good. Yeah, we're about to go through their testimonies now. Yeah. It's you know, and as you can see his face here on the screen, he's like, oh, he just looks so creepy. You just want to fucking I cannot. This guy is you know, that's like, you know, Azriel's song, Sounds of an Angel, you know, and that part where she says that she had to wash him off like a stain. It is so hard to wash when you're a victim and you go through being abused and it just happened. It's like you take a bath, you take a shower after, and you feel like you just don't get off their smell, their touch, their whole violation of you. It just, you feel so dirty and you feel like you can't get clean. You don't understand. That's how it feels. You feel so dirty. You can't wash it off. It just feels there. No matter how much you scrub, no matter how long you're in the shower, no matter how hot the water is. Yes, this was filmed in court, Mama, because this was state court. He didn't do federal, he's doing state. Sick man, yes. Disgusting. Yes. That's how you feel. Disgusting. You feel like bugs are on you and you just can't get them off. That's how you feel. So we're going to get into this video here. Guys, for those who didn't watch it, and if you guys want to watch it in advance, I did put the video in the description box. Okay, so if you guys want to follow the video as well as the Senate hearing before we do the live, you know, if you guys want to catch up on your own, I put it in the description box, okay? As well as the Audible book, if you guys would like to purchase it on your own, or even if you guys can do a great thing and go to the Audible and leave a review, you know, let them know how you feel after listening to the book. Yes, the young lady Chelsea, she committed suicide. She couldn't get past it. You're exactly right. She could not get past it. She started doing drugs. She was, she started losing herself to the point where she was so depressed, she killed herself. Larry Nassar should have his fucking balls cut off, his neck chopped off, okay? Because the young lady took her life. He should never see the light of day, and he will never see the light of day. And we're also gonna, I'm gonna also show the sentencing hearing, where he gets sentenced. So that'll be part of part 3 as well, if I could get it in there. All right, guys. So let's start the video. Oh, wait, I got to go on mute. I forgot. Mute.
Back on the record on People versus Larry Nassar, docket 17-5.
Let me know if you guys can hear it clear.
For the record. Good morning, Your Honor. Angela Poblitis, P58430, on behalf of the Michigan Department of Attorney General.
Good morning, Your Honor. Robin Liddell, on behalf of the people with the Michigan Attorney General's Office, P68287.
Good morning, Your Honor. Chris Allen, Assistant Attorney General for the people, P75329.
Good morning, Your Honor. Laura Rudy, Chief Deputy Attorney General. The number is 15994.
Thank you. We also have Detective Lieutenant Andrea Munford from the Michigan State University Police Department, the officer in charge. Thank you. On behalf of defendant.
Good morning, Your Honor. Matt Newberg on behalf of Larry Nassar. You see it to my left.
Hey, Wings.
And we have just
We represent.
civil attorneys seated at council table. All right. Thank you. I don't have any objection to that in this crowded courtroom.
Thank you.
Next.
Judge, the next survivor that you will hear from reached out to me earlier this week to determine whether she could speak today. She has not publicly disclosed her abuse, but is comfortable with being publicly identified today. And I'd like to introduce you to Jordan Weber. Ms. Weber.
Thank you for being here. Could you please spell your name for the record?
Jordan Weber, JORDYNWIEBER.
Thank you. What would you like me to know?
I first of all want to thank you for allowing us to speak here. I thought that training for the Olympics would be the hardest thing that I would ever have to do. But in fact, the hardest thing I've ever had to do is process that I'm a victim of Larry Nassar. It has caused me to feel shame and confusion. And I've spent months trying to think back on my experience and wonder how I didn't even know this was happening to me and how I became so brainwashed by Larry and everyone at USA Gymnastics, both whom I thought were supposed to be on my side. I started seeing Larry Nassar at the age of 8 right here in my hometown of Lansing. He was known as the best gymnastics doctor in the world. Everyone at my club, on the U.S. national team, and across the country saw Larry, and everyone said the same thing. He was a miracle worker, and he could fix just about anything. I was treated by Larry for any and all of my injuries from ages 8 till I was 18. And it wasn't long before he had gained my trust. He became a safe person of sorts. And to my teenage self, he appeared to be the good guy in an environment that was intense and restricting. He would try to advise me on how to deal with the stresses of training or my coaches. He would bring us food and coffee at the Olympics when we were too afraid to eat too much in front of our coaches. I didn't know that these were all grooming techniques that he used to manipulate me and brainwash me into trusting him. And when I was 14 years old, I tore my hamstring in my right leg. This was when he started performing the procedure that we are all now familiar with. I would cringe at how uncomfortable it felt. He did it time after time, appointment after appointment, convincing me that it was helping my hamstring injury. And the worst part was I had no idea that he was sexually abusing me for his own benefit. I knew it felt strange, but he was the national team doctor. Who was I to question his treatments, or even more, risk my chance at making the Olympic team or being chosen to compete internationally? And after all, he was recommended by the national team staff, and he treated us monthly at all of our national team camps. I had even talked to my teammates, Aly Raisman and Michaela Maroney, about this treatment and how uncomfortable it made us feel. None of us really understood it. After I made the Olympic team, I suffered a stress fracture in my right shin. It was extremely painful to tumble and land using my legs, but I fought through the pain because it was the Olympics, and I knew it would be probably my only shot.
Can you slow down, Jim, just a little?
Yes, ma'am.
Nervous. I appreciate it. Just a little.
Our bodies were all hanging by a thread when we were in London. Who was the doctor that USAG sent to keep us healthy and help us get through? The doctor that was our abuser. The doctor that is a child molester. Because of my shin, I couldn't train without being in extreme pain, and it affected the number of routines I could do to prepare before the competition. And ultimately, it made me feel less prepared than I should have been. I didn't qualify in an all-around competition, and I went through a dark time right before we won the team gold. Now I question everything about that injury and the medical treatment I received. Was Larry even doing anything to help my pain? Was I getting the proper medical care? Or was he only focused on which one of us he was going to prey on next? What was he think about when he massaged my sore muscles every day? Now I question everything. To this day, I still don't know how he could have been allowed to do this for so long. My teammates and I were subjected to his medical care every single month at the National Team Training Center in Texas. He was the only male allowed to be present in the athlete dorm rooms to do whatever treatments he wanted. He was allowed to treat us in hotel rooms alone without any supervision. He took photos of us during training and whenever else he wanted. Nobody was protecting us from being taken advantage of. Nobody was even concerned whether or not we were being sexually abused. I was not protected, and neither were my teammates. My parents trusted USA Gymnastics and Larry Nassar to take care of me, and we were betrayed by both. And now, the lack of accountability from USAG, USOC, and Michigan State have caused me and many other girls to remain shameful, confused, and disappointed. I'm angry with myself for not recognizing the abuse, and that's something I'm struggling with today. But even though I'm a victim, I do not and will not live my life as one. I'm an Olympian. Despite being abused, I worked so hard and managed to achieve my goal. But I want everyone, especially the media, to know that despite my athletic achievements, I am one of over 140 women and survivors whose story is important. Our pain is all the same, and our stories are all important. And now, the people who are responsible need to accept responsibility for the pain they have caused me and the rest of the women who have been abused. Larry Nassar is accountable. USA Gymnastics is accountable. The U.S. Olympic Committee is accountable. My teammates and friends have been through enough, and now it's time for change because the current and future gymnasts do not deserve to live in anxiety, fear, or be unprotected like I was. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your words. You have an Olympian voice. People will listen to you. I've listened to you. You are really very strong, not just as an athlete, but as a woman, as a survivor. I know you'll get past this because of that strength, because you have the strength to come here and talk. It's really important because what you're doing is helping to set a new precedent that all victim survivors should speak out and that all victims have a right to speak out. And your young self did not know that, but you have already, with what you've done in our community and so many others in the world, molded so many young minds and people. What you've just done now is equally important, maybe more important, because they will listen to you. They will speak out like you. They want to be you. You have nothing to be ashamed about. I'm so honored that you came to tell your story here today.
Thank you.
The next survivor is a minor, and she will be accompanied by her mother, and they've asked me to stand with them as well, and I'm happy to do that.
She's okay with being identified?
I want to put that on the record and confirm that before I.
All right, let me know when you're ready.
This is Chelsea's mom, Chelsea Zerfus, and I'll let you question her mom. This is also her coach, who's going to be standing with us as well.
All right, thank you. Would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, Your Honor.
Thank you. Can you put your hand down? Could you state and spell your name for the record?
Roberta Zerfas, Robertazerfas.
And you are the mother of the beautiful young woman in front of me.
Yes, I am.
And how old is she?
15.
And you know, as a minor, she does not have to be identified.
Yes, I do.
And you had an opportunity to discuss what's going to happen here today, that she will be public, her name, everything that she says will be public.
Yes.
And she and you are okay with that?
Yes, we are.
And do you believe that's in her best interest?
Yes, we do.
Thank you.
Just for the record, I do have a photograph with court.
Ma'am, no one forced, threatened, or promised you anything to make this decision, is that correct? I'm asking you about it. Is that correct? You've not been promised anything to
No.
testify, or be paid to testify,
No.
or anything doing this at work for you?
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, nice loud voice and slow. I need to hear your name and then spell it for the record, and then you may read your statement or somebody talk, whatever you're comfortable doing, okay, but slowly.
Chelsea Zerfas, CHELSCA ZERFAS.
Would you like me to know?
Thank you for having me, allowing me to be here and speak. Being a victim of sexual abuse leaves you with a horrible feeling. Larry took advantage of me and many others. He abused his powers. He horribly manipulated me and invaded my personal boundaries. I've done gymnastics ever since I was 6 years old. I love gymnastics so much and always wanted to improve. I wanted to be the best gymnast I could possibly be. I loved being in the gym and learning new skills. I was 12 years old when I started seeing Larry Nassar. When I found out that I was going to him and having him as my doctor, I was very happy and excited. Why wouldn't I be? He was known as one of the best doctors in the world. I had someone that I thought I could trust more than anything. His practices at MSU also made me safe. Why would it not? I was taught to trust doctors because they are there to help you. So I trusted Larry. You said that you would help me get better, and I believed in you. He took advantage of me along with many other innocent lives. It hurt me most when I found out that you hurt my teammates, the girls I loved most. I considered them my family. When I was seeking treatment, Nassar told me that I had torn a muscle in my stomach.
He assured me that he would help me heal. After the first visit, Nassar insisted that I wore loose shorts to any appointment at MSU or his home. I didn't understand at the time what wearing loose shorts had to do with my stomach. I now realize that he did it for easier access to my body. He even managed to sexually abuse me while my mom was in the same room as me. He manipulated me so much that I didn't know what was going on. Larry acted as if he was a friend. He would greet me with a sickening smile every time I saw him. I remember him liking my posts on Instagram. It's weird to think that an older male doctor was liking a little girl's posts and commenting Merry Christmas on Christmas morning. I feel that MSU was an enabler. I should have never been assaulted there along with other girls. MSU knew of the assaults from 97, 98, 99, 2000, 2004, and 2014. MSU needs to be accountable for their actions. I trusted both of them. I was told it was a legitimate medical treatment. You were so nice to me and it made it easier to take advantage of me. It's so sickening that he did that to me. Larry used an innocent 12-year-old for his own pleasures. Larry Nassar is a monster. Not only did MSU fail to keep me safe, but so did USAG. Complaints have came forward for so long and they did nothing about it. Gymnastics is supposed to be a safe and happy environment. USAG failed to keep their gymnasts safe. Shame on them. This has had a huge impact on me. I get uncomfortable about what Larry was doing to me, but he reassured me that it was legitimate medical treatment, and of course I trusted him because he was an Olympic gymnastics doctor. I got scared and avoided going to practices because the treatment made me uncomfortable, even though he kept reassuring me that it was all normal. I avoided going to practice when I knew I would have to see him. The gym was no longer a happy environment for me. Not only did I stop going to his appointments, but also physical therapy. I kept things to myself. I didn't want to have to tell my parents that I was one of the patients abused by Larry Nassar. I didn't want them to worry about me. When I finally came forward to my mom about the situation, I couldn't finish my sentences. I stood there trembling and bawling my eyes out. I didn't want to face reality. I started to get anxiety after seeing all the news reports about him. I felt like I couldn't breathe and I would tremble in fear. I have nightmares about what happened and have troubles with sleeping. I've been put on anxiety pills just so I can function throughout the day. It's hard for me to trust people because of you. I get scared and uncomfortable when I have to go to the doctors. I get scared that I'll be taken advantage of once again by another doctor, just like you did. I try my best to trust doctors, but I can't. Larry ruined that trust. I went through a time where I wouldn't go to school. I would cry uncontrollably. I felt like I couldn't be at school because I was a victim of Larry Nassar. I felt better alone in my familiar room. I've tried my best to gain back the strength I once had. Nothing is easy at all. I just knew that I couldn't let him take gymnastics away from me. You, Larry, asked for forgiveness and want us to heal. This is all your fault. You wouldn't be here in the first place if it wasn't for you. We all would be living our normal lives, but instead you caused this issue. I will never forgive you what you've done to me. You're a coward and a sickening man. You did this to me. You're the one causing all this pain. While us survivors are carrying on with our lives and succeeding, you'll be rotting behind bars where you belong. You don't deserve to see the light of day. I am not weak of this, but have grown as a person and have become stronger. I am a survivor. Here I am today facing my abuser. I'm finally being heard. I'm no longer hiding my story. I ask that you give Larry Nassar the maximum sentencing possible for his horrid crimes that he has done over decades. Knowing that he'll be locked up will help me feel safe. I hope that abuse is brought up more and people become aware of how big the issue really is. It makes a difference to have the abuser accountable for their actions. Thank you.
That was a very strong, brave voice, and I hope that now that you've spoken publicly, you leave your pain here with him and you live a long, happy life. You are not alone anymore. All these people support you. Your sister survivors support you. And it's so important what you've done. And just one of the first things you said is that you were so worried about your teammates and others that you did this too, and you thought of others instead of yourself. And you are, with your young voice, helping countless other young people who are in the same situation, who we don't know about. You're giving them the strength to come forward to their parent or their coach, somebody, and say no. And that's what you've done. I'm so very proud of you. This doesn't define you, this strengthens you. You've shown that today. Congratulations, Mary.
Thank you.
You know I'm crying in the background, T-Bam. Look at his face like he's annoyed.
Your Honor, the next survivor is Samantha Ersch, and she is accompanied at the podium by her coach, Patrick, and I'll let him give you the last name. And she has agreed to be publicly identified, and I have displayed a photograph of Samantha as well.
Thank you. And sir, what is your full name?
Patrick Hullion, Hulliung. Patrick's correct spelling.
Thank you. Ma'am, thank you for being here.
Thank
What
you.
would you like me to know on first date? Spell your name for the record. And I know you have your statement there. Please read it as it's supposed to be.
I will.
Okay, so we can understand it, okay? Thank you.
My name's Samantha Ersch. It's SAMANTHAURSCH.
You may proceed with your name.
Your Honor, thank you so much for letting me speak today. I have been in the courtroom all week, and I know you mentioned this is just your job, but there's a difference between doing your job and doing it extraordinarily. You are helping all of us to heal with your words to each of us. Once again, one thing I realized this week is it is okay if I didn't include all of my feelings into this statement I've written, because all of these strong women have spoken them at some point this week. And you are helping all of us, even the people who aren't here, begin to heal. I can't thank you enough for that. As I sit down here to write this tonight, all I can think about is how much easier it would be to not do it. To keep living my life like none of this ever happened, just like I did for 5 years between my senior year of college and September 13th, 2016. However, it's time for me to move on, and this is how I'm going to start. I fell in love with the sport of gymnastics when I was 3 and competed until I was 22. Over the years, I've been proud to call myself a gymnast. But in my senior year at Central Michigan University, one doctor's appointment permanently changed the way I think about the sport I dedicated so much of my life to. To understand why, I need to tell you what happened. Throughout my gymnastics career, I was relatively healthy. No broken bones or major surgeries. That changed my freshman year of college when I tore my ACL. Coming back from surgery meant I was always the backup, fighting for a spot on my college team and pushing through the pain to do so. After my knee surgery, I began having severe muscle spasms and lower back pain. After 4 years, my last opportunity to compete was senior night, our last home meet of the season. Since I had tried everything else to help my back pain, and since Mr. Nassar was so close to CMU, many people suggested I go see him. One of my teammates was seeing him for another injury, and she called to ask if I could tag along to her appointment. Nassar agreed. My first appointment with Mr. Nassar went really well. I felt so lucky that the same man working with the Olympians made time for me. When I arrived that day, he knew exactly who I was. He knew the gymnastics club I attended, that I hadn't really competed in college, and why. He made me feel just as important as anyone else. Even better, his x-ray and assessment gave me a clear diagnosis. I was so glad to finally be able to tell my coaches and teammates why I was in so much pain that I carried around my medical records and x-rays from my visit. It was what happened at the next appointment that I never saw coming. It was gymnastics season, so my schedule was crazy, but Nassar's office was nice enough to fit me in at the end of the day. I drove an hour from Mount Pleasant to this appointment by myself, and everything just seemed to go as it had before. It wasn't until one of the office staff members entered the exam room to tell Nassar she was leaving for the evening that I thought, that's odd. I wonder if all his staff let him know when they have to leave. It wasn't until later that I realized this meant I was completely alone in the office with him. I wish I would have realized sooner. Not long after, Nassar informed me there were other things he could do to make the myofascial release and massage he was performing on my upper legs less painful. He told me it was a little invasive. I had no idea this meant he would be inserting his fingers into the most private areas of my body. My head was spinning. Is this supposed to be happening? I thought, something isn't right. Can I get an infection from this? I guess not. He has to know what he's doing. He's a doctor. When the appointment was over, he asked if I was feeling better. I wasn't sure how to answer because I wasn't sure what had just happened. I went to exit back towards the lobby where I had entered. All of the lights in the entire office were off, and he said, you can just go out this side door. I remember walking down a back stairwell, feeling mortified and dirty. I called my mom while I walked to the car, and just as I usually do when I'm walking alone after dark, I told her about the appointment, and right away she knew something didn't sound right, but I defended him. He explained why he was doing it. I don't want to talk about it. We fought as I drove. When I got back to campus, I asked a teammate if Larry, as she called him, had ever done anything similar to her. She said he wasn't a bit shy and had to do the same thing to her for another type of injury. I was able to convince myself what happened was a legitimate medical treatment. I never told anyone else. But the feeling of wrongdoing haunted my mom. 5 years later, in January of 2016, she shared what happened with who I consider to be my second parents, my club gymnastics coaches. Suddenly, a new set of hard conversations began. Once again, I defended Mr. Nassar and rationalized what happened. I was now newly engaged and had to tell my soon-to-be husband that what was going on. I'll never forget the look on his face that day. He knew, just like my mom and coaches had known, something was off. I am so grateful for the bravery of Rachel Denhollander, which brought Mr. Nassar's disgusting actions to light, and all of the other women who have come forward to form this army against him. It has given me the strength I didn't have back then. Although it was only a day or two before I spoke to the police after Rachel's interview, the guilt that I didn't say something years earlier will never go away. I was older. I should have trusted my gut. But then I think back to all the conversations I had once everything initially came out, and I know why I was so afraid. Even when there were so many people making accusations, many still defended his actions. There was a different skeptical tone in the voices of people within the gymnastics community when I told them what happened. The year and 4 months since the defendant's arrest have been some of the happiest and toughest days of my life. On September 13, 2016, I was just 2 months into a brand new job with all new coworkers. Can you imagine being surrounded by people you barely know, coming to the realization that you were sexually assaulted and manipulated? Walking around your new office puffy-eyed with everyone asking if you're okay? Having to tell your brand new boss why You were an emotional wreck because you're staring at the computer with your mind in flashbacks a million miles away. How every time something small gets brought up, you feel consumed, remembering all of the details and overcome with feelings. Can you imagine planning your wedding and being nervous to share your hometown with your future in-laws, only to have them ask during the trip, "Have you seen all the stuff about that doctor on the news? Do you think he did it?" Because they're just trying to make conversation with you, not knowing that you know he did. Can you imagine days before your wedding, waking up to your mom yelling throughout the house because one of the Olympians bravely shared her story, is all over the news, and instantly you're consumed with your feelings again? Can you imagine preparing to leave for your honeymoon only to get a call telling you that while you're out of town, the man that violated you will plead guilty but won't be prosecuted for what he did to you? These have been some of the highs and lows in my life over the past year and 4 months. I have so many more wonderful things to come in my life, and this ends the defendant's cloud over them. Today, I ask that for the rest of Larry Nassar's life, by receiving the maximum sentence possible, he thinks about how he changed all of ours, because I'm not pretending it didn't happen anymore. I'm just moving past it. Thank you.
And you just took a huge step to move past it. You are strong. You're not afraid anymore. And I love your comments about Rachel, because it just takes one voice to reveal crime of any kind. And you all stand united saying no more, and not just against this defendant, but for all women. And that's one of the reasons I appreciate your comments, thanking me and all of those, but I'm hoping that other judges allow extra victims. You are not, as you say, not going to be a prosecution in your case, but ultimately it's a global resolution, and you matter. You and all the other voices matter, and that's why I'm allowing it, and I'm hoping that this will become normal. I have to say, it's normal in my courtroom, not
Thank
just
you.
on this case. I think people think it's just on this case, but if you sat in my courtroom, I always allow victims, their families, to talk. And by the way, I do the same for defendants, because that's important too.
Mhm.
The families of defendants get affected.
Yeah.
And of course, defendant will have an opportunity to speak. I don't know if he will. But it's really important that word spread about all types of crimes, but especially those against minors. So you are part of this strong army, as you've all called yourselves. I think you're all superheroes, with Rachel being your leader. But you're not afraid. You're one very strong voice, and you're also individual voices who go out there in the world and will continue to speak. You don't have anything to be ashamed or afraid of or to cry about anymore. Leave it all here and go out and be happy, because that's what you want and that's what you deserve. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Hey, the truth. What's up, mama? Ow, I'm glad you fresh off of work. Karen J, what's up, baby? Well, I hope these girls get to do impact statements the day of R. Kelly's sentencing. I know it won't be televised because, unfortunately, it is in the federal courts, and the federal courts do not allow cameras. So, but the state case in Chicago will be televised. And hopefully we'll get to see the girls make impact statements there. And it'll be televised for the world to see. The world needs to see. The world needs to hear from these girls from the bottom of their heart, the pits of their soul. come out and say what they need to say. Truth says, you don't see his people running around talking about not guilty. No, his people were. They actually were. They were taunting the girls. We were reading, listening to some of the book. When you get a chance, Truth, rewind if you can, mamita. Yeah, so you can listen to the rest of the book. Because the first 2 hours we read, we were listening to the rest of the book, Twisted. So yeah, they were attacking these girls as well when they came out, calling them media whores and all these types of things, and gold diggers and and all types of stuff, threatening them. Yes, yes, yes. And it's people who were in this gym world, you know, and that they know this guy to be a very prominent doctor. He's a superstar in the gym world, you know, so he's very important. And they were covering up all his crimes, including the FBI, which, yeah, it's crazy. So we will be seeing that hearing as well, because the girls wound up taking it all the way up to Congress so that they can do an investigation into the Department of Justice and the FBI as to why it took so long for these investigations to get started. Okay? Baby, it's okay. You can fall asleep, mommy. You know there's this thing called replay. You can see the rest tomorrow. That's why I said I'm doing this live until about 2:30ish or so. All right. We're going to get a couple of, maybe like one more impact statement or two. And then I'm going to end this live and we will continue it to part 3, where we will get in the last hour of the book Twisted. And then we'll continue with the rest of the impact statements from the survivors, as well as the Senate hearing. So, yeah, we're going to continue the series on Larry Nassar and compare him to R. Kelly, because I think it's fair. I mean, they're both predators. They both molested children. And they were both very powerful people in an industry. You know, same thing with Jeffrey Epstein. You know, if you compare him, they're one and the same as well. So there's a lot of predators, you know, that have been going down. So that's what we're doing. Okay. Hey, Miss Showers. Hi, Mama. Yes. You know, so let's continue. And you know, these girls, I wanted to say that they were so manipulated to think that the things that he was doing was right, and that he was doing medical procedures. These girls, she said, I'm walking around my office shocked because I can't believe I just learned that I was violated. I didn't even think I was violated. I actually thought this man was doing his medical diligence. Okay. Same with the other ladies, the other 2 young ladies. They thought he was doing his job. He manipulated them. He brainwashed them. As she said, we were brainwashed. Same thing with R. Kelly. He brainwashed these girls to think that they were in loving relationships and that he just likes to have a lot of girls. He can't have just one girlfriend. But you can't talk to each other. You know, towards the end, that's why things got screwy, because he had them talking to each other. Okay? That's right. Off with they mofo heads. Okay? Facts. All of them. Every last predator that's walking this earth, may they all go down one by one, especially the ones who have power. Because we know about the little Joe Schmoes in the streets. They get caught all the time. It's these 1% mofos that are up in the top with money and power that are getting away with it. And it has to stop. Period. Right. Not hard to understand. Little girls get confused. I was violated by a doctor as a grown-up and didn't say nothing, only confused to what happened. That's exactly what happens, especially when it's someone you trust, someone you know. It's hard to distinguish, like, what just happened right now? Did this just happen right now? Am I bugging out? Is this a dream? Pinch me. You turn them down, you say no, and it's still happening, and you're like, what is happening? And as I say, we freeze. We freeze, fight, or flight. That's what happens. So let's continue, guys. I'm going to go back on mute. You can make your comments. I'll post them up on the screen as they go.
Next. Okay, just one moment to prepare for the next. It's going to be a little bit different.
He's pathetic. Sorry ass, sick ass pedophile.
Okay, the next speakers you'll hear from, the next survivors are sisters. They are both minors. Come on up, please. And they're going to give 100%
Sisters!
of their parents, their mother and their father, Dr. Johnson as well. But I know that we want to make sure that we're making a record before I
Yes.
deliver their name. But I am told, and I want to make sure nothing has changed, or if it has, to let you know, that they wish to be publicly identified. Is that accurate? Okay.
Can I just have the parents step forward? I just need to make a record of this. It's important. Could you please each raise your right hands? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Put your hand up. Could you please spell your name for the record, sir? You first.
My name is Brad Johnson, BradJohnson.
All right. You can just stand. You're going to get something in your neck. If you do that, we have a lot of technology, so we can make it louder if we need to. Just keep your voice louder. All right.
Sure.
And ma'am, your name?
It's Kelly Johnson, KELLIJOHNSON.
All right. And you are the parents of the two beautiful sisters in back of you?
Yes.
Yes.
And I understand that they are minors?
One is
Okay. Which one?
Maddie,
All right. And what is, and before you tell me her name, how old is she?
15.
15. And do you believe it's in her best interest to speak?
We do.
Yes.
And you talked about this with her?
We have.
And you know the whole world is watching her words, her voice, everything will be publicized, or could be.
Yes.
Yes.
And you think that she can handle that?
We do.
Yes.
And no one has forced, threatened, coerced you, paid you anything, promised you anything for this, is that correct?
No.
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 Is that
Yes,
correct or
it's
incorrect?
That is
correct, Honor.
correct.
It's one of those double negatives we inherit to do. I just need to make sure it's correct for the record.
Yes, it's
All right.
correct.
So at this time, I will ask your daughters to step forward and give me their name and spell their names, and you can come close to them or however you wish. And if they need help, you can give them a hug or whatever you need to do. All right, so for the record, who's going first?
I am.
The younger one.
Older one.
The older one. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I'm sorry. Okay. And could you tell me your name and spell it?
My name's Kara Johnson, KaraJohnson. And I would just like to thank you again for letting us share our story.
You may proceed.
Your Honor, I would like to address the defendant.
You may.
I am writing this in response to your actions, Mr. Nassar, for not following proper medical conduct and in result exploiting hundreds of young girls, including myself, at such a vulnerable time. The pain you have caused me mentally and emotionally is unexplainable and has been impacting my life heavily, especially these past few months. I am currently a senior in high school. I should be focusing on my classes, exams, upcoming tennis season, and college search. Instead, I am here and have been here for months, hoping that after this is all over, I can finally be a senior in high school again. You took advantage of your authoritative powers as my doctor, and in result took my innocence instead of healing me. I am hurt and confused, as you placed me into a position that not only made me insecure, but was extremely inappropriate and uncomfortable. I remember the anxiety I would have entering the office, knowing how the appointment would most likely go, and telling myself it was normal to feel that queasy ache in the pit of my stomach, that you were performing those procedures for the right reasons. I remember telling myself that you were safe and that I should trust you with my body, as you were a doctor for athletes across the country that I looked up to. My dad is a DO, and you knew that at the time when I was your patient. When he would show up to my appointments with me, you wouldn't do your typical procedure that I became used to you performing.
You know, it's interesting how she said, I trusted you with my body. You know, R. Kelly did the same thing with his music. In his music, he would serenade the girls and he would tell them, trust me with your body. He would say the same exact things in his lyrics. Trust me with your body. Your body's calling me. Trust me. Let me take control. I got this. The Pied Piper of R&B. He played his flute and the children were led to stray. They trusted him with their bodies.
I was uncomfortable at the appointments without my father, but maintained trust in you, as the framed images of the patients on your wall told an incredible story of a great doctor who could heal anyone. I remember the one appointment that has been played over and over in my mind and has given me nightmares still to this day. You had me get an x-ray for my hips and back and then check them out, with a strange obsession on how my hips were not fully developed yet and that you could tell my period had not started. You then made me change into those strange shorts you had in your cabinet, shorts that were so big I was swimming in, and that gave you easy access to my body. I was told to lay stomach down on the table, where you proceeded to stack white towels between my mom and I and adjust the table to an angle where she couldn't see, which I remember feeling weird about. I immediately shut down all of those thoughts as I told myself you were going to fix me, and that it was okay to feel uncomfortable, that you were going to heal my pain. You then pulled my shorts down, moved my underwear over to the side, and started touching me. Without consent, without telling me what you were going to do, and if that wasn't bad enough, with your gloveless hands. You had your eyes closed and continued to molest me. After a few minutes of this, you just left the room, leaving my mom and I extremely uncomfortable while my bare butt was out. You came back into the room 5 minutes later with a tube of some kind of lubricant. You then continued this procedure using the lubricant, and I began to feel numb down there. I then at that point wondered how what you were doing would fix the pain I had from jamming my hip after a cross-country race. After about 30 minutes of this, you smacked my butt, said, "All right, we are done here, sweetie," and then pulled up my shorts. You said quietly to me that if I was ever on my period during one of your appointments, to let you know, so you could change things up a bit. After that appointment, I was supposed to go back to school, but everything seemed cloudy and I had the urge to shower, as I felt dirty and gross. I took a 45-minute shower that day, and that feeling never left. I was only 13 years old. You manipulated me into believing that you were the only doctor that could fix me, and that I had to have you or no one at all.
You see what she just said? Oh my God. That's exactly what I was saying earlier. You feel so dirty. You just can't shake it off, no matter how long you're in the shower, no matter how hot the water is, no matter how much soap, no matter how much you're rubbing with that scrubbing pad or the washcloth. You still feel like you just can't get them off. If you don't know what it is to be a victim of sexual assault or abuse, you cannot speak. You don't know what it is to be a victim. I hope all the R. Kelly supporters are sitting here and listening to this stuff. I hope they're paying attention. Because it's not just R. Kelly. And it's not black or white. It's persons, human beings, people, little girls, grown men being abused physically, emotionally, sexually, mentally, physically abused. And all these girls held this in, thinking that this is, some of them thought this wasn't right, and some of them just said, okay, it's just a procedure. With R. Kelly, the girls were like, okay, I'm going to succeed in the industry like I want to, because he promised me these things if I trust him with my body. Let's continue.
And for so long, I believed that to be true. I still cannot get over the grief that you have caused me by creating the false relationship of trust and custody. And I cannot believe that I felt safe and in good hands when I was with you. You fooled me, telling me of your family stories, telling jokes to attempt to make me more comfortable, and liking my social media posts. Some of the things that I now realize were major red flags and should have never been tolerated. I should have went with my gut and told someone that something felt very off. But how was I supposed to know at the age of 13 what was medically acceptable and what the boundaries were? I am disgusted by your actions and with the fact that even under investigation, you had the ability and power to continue these procedures on patients such as I without following the medical restrictions you were placed under. These few months have been extremely difficult for me, as I have been struggling through depression and fighting off suicidal thoughts. I assumed I was going crazy, but after hearing all of these other girls speak, I'm realizing that I'm not crazy at all, and that I am suffering from something you did to me for so many years. I never used to question the purpose of my life, and I never used to have nightmares about being raped, which is something that I'm now extremely paranoid about, even though it has never happened to me. You have placed so much fear in my life, Larry, and I will never be able to get back what you have taken so effortlessly from me. Your actions, along with all of the other actions of abusers in this country, shall not go unnoticed. Trust is a hard thing to earn, and personally has been something much harder to develop since you've molested me. I now know that I cannot second guess myself when it comes to decisions with my body, and it sickens me to know that I was not the only one who had her innocence taken away without even truly knowing what was going on. It is terrifying how sick perpetrators like you are given the power to do such terrible things to innocent children for so long and almost get away with it. So many people believed you were innocent, as you have brainwashed us all into believing that you were someone of great medical integrity. And I am angry at those who have been shutting down this case for so many years and who have not taken the degree of this sexual abuse seriously. I used to be sorry. I felt bad that you had to touch me, and I grew very insecure. I am so glad that I no longer have to feel bad for you, and I'm glad that you will be paying for your actions the rest of your life. You are now a powerless man. God knows of all the innocent victims you took advantage of and the acts of betrayal you have performed. The Lord is my shield, and I know that through him, I am capable of all things, and that I will persevere through this, and that even the most evil of sins like the ones you have committed cannot destroy who I am and will have major consequences that will follow you for the rest of your life. God has spoken to me these past few days, and I'm finally starting to leave the dark place I have been in for so long. You cannot take advantage of me anymore, Mr. Nassar, and for that I am grateful. Due to your malpractice and of the pain you have caused all victims, I believe that you should be in prison for a minimum of 40 years to reflect on what you have done. Your Honor, I would like to thank you again for allowing me to share my statement today.
You are very brave. You're not in darkness anymore. You're in lightness. You have just opened doors, along with your sister survivors, for others to speak out. And that's really important. And he can't fool you, as you said, but he also can't fool anybody else who's heard your words. You're a tower of strength, and with your sister, I'm going to hear from in a moment, your sister survivor, you also have all of the sister survivors. You are all in this horrible club, but you know what? It's also a great club because you're all towers of strength. We're going to get past this, and your message is being heard by the world. And I know you're going to graduate, congratulations, from high school and go on to college and keep talking to men and women alike about this, because college is another place where we see this happening over and over and over again to young people who don't know or put themselves in bad situations. And I know you will be one of those voices that they will listen to. So you are a proud example. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Please state and spell your name for the record.
Madeline, Madeline, Johnson, Johnsson.
And how old are you today?
15.
And you're comfortable speaking?
Yes.
All right, very good. You seem very confident. So I want to hear those words nice and loud, all right?
All right.
Thank
you. The first time I went to see Nassar, I was 12 years old. Being the little gymnast I was beyond excited I had the opportunity to have Nassar as my doctor. He was spoken so highly of, as he was known as the gymnastics doctor. I was slowly injuring my back more and more with every practice, until one night my pain was so bad I couldn't even breathe without breaking down into tears. My parents were contemplating whether or not to take me to the ER, but my mom insisted she would just text Nassar to get me into an appointment, as this seemed like the most beneficial way to get treatment. My mom texted him, and he got me in right away the next day. I couldn't hardly wait to see Nassar because with all of the stories I have heard about him supposedly treating Olympic gymnasts, I knew he was capable of finally relieving my back pain. When I walked into his office the next day, I was immediately in awe. His walls were covered with a substantial amount of pictures of Olympic gymnasts, all which included a little message and a signature. I felt so lucky that I got to have the same doctor as all of my idols in the gymnastics world, and the doctor who was known as the best of the best. My appointment with Nassar this day was at least 2 hours long. After he addressed my injuries, he got started into the treatment. Nassar approached so many different techniques, each one relieving my pain by a slight amount. Then, Nassar pulled on my leg to unjam my hip, and at this point, almost all of my back pain was gone, but he still continued to try to fix me. I felt his hands slowly make their way from my lower back down towards the seams of my shorts. He asked me to flip over onto my back, and as I was doing so, he jokingly told me that the next thing might be uncomfortable. Before I could even reply to his comment, he moved his hands up my shorts. He told me he was going to push on my pubic bone, but instead I felt his fingers touch a different part of my body, a part of my body that has never been touched by anyone before. I felt all of my muscles become tense, but I tried to tell myself to relax because he was a doctor and he knew what he was doing. The next appointment was just for my sister, but I went along too. She was wearing pants, and he made her change into these shorts that he had in a box inside his cabinet. Because of this, I understood that it was also necessary for me to wear shorts every time I had an appointment. I later learned Nassar wanted us to wear loose-fitting shorts so he would have easy access to the places he wanted for his own pleasure. Soon enough, I was back in his office with back pain again. My mom decided my dad should take me to this appointment as he is a physician and he could attempt to learn what Nassar was doing so I wouldn't have to go into his office every time I hurt my back. I told my mom I did not want my dad to take me because that would be awkward. My mom asked me why it would be awkward, but I didn't answer this question. I thought that if my mom didn't think what he was doing under my shorts was uncomfortable, then why should I? Before this appointment, I made sure I was showered as I was preparing for him to have to touch under my shorts again. Once we went over symptoms, he diagnosed me with the same thing as before. My dad was actively watching an attempt to learn what Nassar was doing to help treat me. During this appointment, Nassar didn't place his hands anywhere on my bare skin. I didn't even have to remove my sweatpants to reveal my shorts I had under them. After this appointment, I remember thinking about him not doing the same things as he did before, but I never mentioned it as I felt uncomfortable talking about it, and it did not seem important or necessary to say. Once again, I injured.
You see how when the father was at the appointment, he didn't do anything. She said he barely touched my skin. But when the mom was around, it was different. I'm glad he is locked up and he is gone. Gone. And I'm glad they tried to get his ass when he first got locked up, when they moved him from the one prison to the next prison. They tried to beat his ass. He got lucky they saved him, and he wound up going into PC.
My back. I followed through with the same routine of making sure I was clean before I went in and remembering to wear shorts under my sweatpants. By this time, my mom and I thought we were going to know what we were expecting, so my mom did not pay much attention to what Nassar was doing. I was lying on my back, and Nassar slowly slipped his hands up my shorts, this time saying nothing about what he was doing before he started. He didn't only touch inappropriate areas, but he moved my underwear to the side, and his ungloved hands massaged my bare skin. Once he began this, I looked over at my mom, but she was looking down. I looked at Nassar, only to see his body was blocking my hips, so even if my mom did look up, she could not see what he was doing to me. His face was turned away from me, his eyes closed and squinting, and he was heavily concentrated on what he was doing. Nassar did this for roughly 5 minutes, then said, "Okay, kiddo," and made me turn over onto my stomach. He would then push on my lower back, which relieved pain for the moment, but once he stopped, it immediately returned. He asked me for my pain level, and I told him it was the same as before,
the answer I'm sure he wanted to hear. He repeated this procedure several times until I realized the only way I could get him to stop was if I lied and said my pain was all gone. He had me lie on my back, and he yanked on my leg to unjam my hips, and that's when my back actually felt a little better. After this appointment, I knew my back was slowly getting worse, and Nassar's treatment was no longer helping me. I felt uncomfortable and extremely dirty after leaving these appointments. My mom asked me if my back actually felt better, and I lied to her saying it did because I didn't want her to know that Nassar couldn't help me. I also didn't want her to question me on why I was lying to him about my pain levels. I felt so guilty and confused that I had felt uncomfortable with how this professional doctor with such a well-known reputation was treating me. Just as I was about to go to bed one night, an old friend texted me a video link. I clicked on the link, not knowing what to expect. This video was Rachel's video. As she went on talking about Larry Nassar sexually abusing her, I was in shock. I didn't know what to think. I ran up the stairs to tell my mom all about this video, but before I could finish explaining myself, she told me she already saw it. My mom and I sat there in silence for a while, and I felt so sick. I was thinking about all the appointments I had with Nassar, trying to decide if this was abuse or strictly a doctor's treatment. I woke up this morning, and I had felt a feeling I have never felt all 14 years of my life. I went to school and wanted nothing more than to be invisible the entire day. I did not want anyone to approach me, to talk to me, or to touch me. How I was feeling this day is difficult to describe, but it's something I will never forget and something I hope I never have to feel again. For a while, I didn't believe I was one of these sexually abused victims. I later learned that this was not true. I tried rejecting the fact that I was molested by Nassar because it seemed like the easiest way to cope. I now know I was struggling so hard to decide if it was abuse or not because I knew if I admitted to myself that it was, it would change my life so much, and it did. I always knew what Nassar did to treat me was uncomfortable, but at only 12 years old, I had no idea that it was inappropriate, illegal, and wrong. He was the doctor, I was the child, I had no idea what to think. I will never be able to stress enough how much he manipulated my family and I so he could build a strong trust with us. We put all of our trust into this man, and he had such a high title and name to live up to in the gymnastics world and to athletes in general.
Oh, God. Poor girls. And then they were sisters, and he was treating the both of them at the same time. The family trusted him. They trusted him. Same with the R. Kelly. The families trusted him, that he would do the right thing. They didn't think that those girls were being abused. Like I said before, the parents made a stink. They had to, because their daughters were being abused. It wasn't like they were in a great relationship with R. Kelly. It wasn't all peaches and cream. They had good times and they had bad times. They would get punished when they didn't do as they were told. You break a rule, you get punished. Beatings. These poor girls, they trusted R. Kelly. They felt like they were comfortable. They saw a star. They saw a star. The same way these girls saw a star doctor. They saw a star who couldn't do no wrong in R. Kelly. Same thing with these girls. They saw a star doctor who they assumed knew what he was doing. That he was taking care of them. Same thing with R. Kelly. These girls thought they were being taken care of. He led them to believe that they were being taken care of. And can't nobody be better than him. Can't nobody take care of them better than him. It's crazy. These parents were manipulated too. Even though we don't agree with some of these parents and their tactics and things that went on, these parents were manipulated too. Let's continue.
Nassar spent so much time on me and acted like he really truly cared about me. Your Honor, may I speak to the defendant? Larry, you used to be everything to all gymnasts and athletes, and now you are nothing more than a disgusting monster. You used your power and title to hurt me mentally and emotionally. You abused me, an innocent 12-year-old girl, for your own sick pleasures. You spent so much time on me, acting like you truly cared about me. Today, I am a 15-year-old girl, and throughout my years in high school, I have struggled with trust, confidence, good judgment, and for these past few weeks especially, achieving my academic goals. Everyone thinks of me as a physically and mentally strong person, but today I'm admitting to spending countless nights crying alone in my room, suffering from feeling worthless and lost. For the longest time, you deprived me of my happiness, the ability to sleep at night, and feeling of being secure. Because of you, every time I hear someone call me kiddo as you did, I think of the face you made while you were abusing me. You called me that, reassuring to yourself that I was a young, naive girl. There's a point in everyone's life when they outgrow those extraordinary dreams they had hoped they could achieve as a child and reality kicks in, when they realize the world isn't what they used to think it was. Larry, you took this from me at 12 years old. I used to be such a joyful girl and believed everyone could be forgiven for the mistakes they had made. You made me afraid of the world. I will never forget about the pain I have suffered. But Larry, after today, I will no longer suffer. But I will be joyful that you will never be able to lay your hands on another girl again. You will no longer deprive me of life. Your Honor, sometimes I think it would be easiest for me if I never knew about Nassar's abuse, but I quickly remind myself that this would be the worst case possible. If he wasn't behind bars now, he would be hurting more and more young girls with each day that passed. What he did will stick with us victims, will stay with us for the rest of our lives. Therefore, because we have to live with it, he should be sentenced to the maximum amount of years and locked up for the rest of his life. Thank you.
Thank you. I have heard you and your sister survivors speaking out as you have done and your sister has done, as all the victims have done, to victim survivors who have done, helps others. And I hear that loud and clear in your insightful, youthful voice. That's what you want to do, and that's one of the reasons you and your sister are here. The world is a better place because of what you just said and done. Both of you should be very proud of yourself. I know that now you don't feel like the world is a great place, but it really, really is. I've heard what all of you have said, and you're so wise at your tender age. And I'm taking into consideration everything I've heard you sentence in. You are both worthy of everything wonderful. You don't let him take that away from you, because then he wins. And I know that your sister talked about suicide. You didn't, but I suspect you, like most of the other survivor victims, have thought about it. Please don't. You're here today because you want a happier world and a happier life. If you leave us, he wins. I've said it to others, I'll keep saying it, because suicide is never, ever an answer. You have some incredible parents here with you. So if there are any issues, I hope that you turn to them and continue to get help. He will be behind bars, and that should make you feel safer. And you should leave the grief and sadness and unworthiness here in this courtroom. We'll sweep it away. Can we take him away?
Thank you.
Live happy lives. Thank you so much for
Thank
being
you.
Yeah.
Well, that's where we're going to leave it for now. This shall be continued. There will be a part 3. We will listen to the last of Twisted, and we will watch the rest of the girls' impact statements, and we will also watch the Senate hearing. So, guys, thank you for hanging out. Thank you for stopping by. And I hope that, these things that I do, I hope that it really reaches to some people and they can really understand the psychology of it all. Because a lot has to do with psychology. And these poor victims who are survivors, they've gone through it at such a young, tender age and can't wrap around the things that happen to them. They don't understand. They can't comprehend. And when you're going through this, it's and especially when it's someone that you trust, someone that you know, or someone that you think you know. Hopefully, I can reach out to some people. I need people to really understand that victims are, we're, I don't know how to put it into words, but excuse me, guys. We don't know how to comprehend when this happens. We don't understand when a person's getting raped. We don't understand that. We just say, why? I don't understand why it happened. I don't understand why this person didn't understand no meant no. And we don't even understand why we won't tell. So I hope this is a lesson for you guys. I really do. I come out here and I do the shit that I do, and I pray that it reaches to people and people understand. Like I said, any of them R. Kelly supporters, you just want to come over here and debate me? Let's go. We could do it. We could do it. You can come up with a million excuses, and I'm going to tell you a million reasons why you're wrong. So, good night, everyone. I love you guys. You're very welcome, Granny. You welcome, Truth Strong. You welcome. Good night, ladies. I love y'all. Granny says, I was irritated for months after my doctor visit. Why did I bend over when he asked me to? I was there for a cold. I have to laugh. You know, it's because coercive control, man, manipulation. I'm telling you, the mind is a powerful thing. This is why we have a lot of people out in these YouTube streets confused and lost, because you got bloggers who manipulate these people, who spin situations and narratives and use coercive control. It's like everybody has a cult. Everybody's a cult leader out here, okay? We cult 45, right, guys? Hashtag cult 45. I miss you, Larry. I love you, Larry. I miss you so much, brother. I can't wait for him to come home. He gonna have a field day, because there's still gonna be stuff to be talking about R. Kelly, because he is not done. And Larry will be home before R. Kelly. You're welcome, Ty. Love you guys. Good night. Good night. I love you too, guys. You're welcome, T-Bam. Y'all already know. Right. She trusted him because he was the doctor. Like, she's like, okay, well, maybe, maybe he has to stick his finger in my butt and I got a cough. Maybe he wants to see the rhythm. You don't know. 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 You're thinking he's doing what he's supposed to be doing. You're the patient. He's the doctor. Who knows better, you or him? The doctor, right? You're just the patient. The same thing with R. Kelly. Who knows better, the kids or the adult? The adult. Who are they going to trust? The adult. Who are you going to trust? Your doctor. It's all the same kind of pattern. Okay? Yes. Free sweet feet, Larry McGee. Yes. We love you. We miss you, Larry. Yes. That's right, Granny. You didn't do anything wrong, sweetheart. Nothing. You did as you were told because you trusted someone. So, guys, y'all already know. You can hit your girl up. Cash App, PayPal, Zelle. Y'all already know. Let me put my banner up just in case. You can also donate if you would like to donate to our brother Larry. His Cash App is $Cuphead40. He will be home soon. Amen. Hallelujah. 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 And if you would like to donate to your girl to keep your channel going, donations are appreciated because that's what helps me to keep it going. You could Cash App $Diva Divine Light. You could PayPal me Diva Divine Light, or you could Zelle me at 347-664-9253. For those that are on the replay, leave your comments below in the video. And please make sure, guys, don't forget to hit that like button. Okay? Make sure you get me in that algorithm. Share the show. Please do. If you are not subscribed to the channel, for those who are checking me out for the first time, please subscribe. Hit that notification bell on the side. Make sure you put it on all. Okay, guys? And if you would like to be part of my secret members group, Badass Divas Club, it's $1.99. You get little perks. You get to put some emojis in the chat. Guys, if you can, for those that are members, type in the little emojis, please. Show some examples of what you can do. Guys, when you guys are in here and we're doing a live, try to remember that the little button on the chat bar that has the smiley face, you hit that and you will see the emojis. And I want you guys to use them. All right? It's a lot of fun. And you also get perks month to month or every so months. Your badges grow and you get little different badges. The longer you're with me, the longer you stay a member, the badges turn to different levels. All right, guys. I love you guys. Y'all ready?